Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the March 10th meeting of the Eastchester Board of Fire Commissioners. I'm going to make a motion to open the meeting. Can I get a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
I'm going to salute the flag now. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Okay, we'll start with reports. First one is from Jamie, our treasurer, for the Treasury Report.
Okay. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Yes? Okay. So tonight we're looking at the financials through February 28th. They're currently showing a net budget surplus of approximately $160,000. I have included in my treasurer's report for this evening, just as a reminder, we had a list of purchases that we initiated in 2021 that won't be complete until 2022. So those were our budget encumbrances for 2022, totaling approximately $224,000. Also, just as a reminder, as the work we're doing at Station 4, we are using our capital reserve for that work per the permissive referendum that we did in 2021. So I just provided a breakdown here as well of the spending of the capital reserve per the permissive referendum. It'll show the spending to date with our most recent Vinco invoice was for the $19,000, meaning that we have $598,000 left of the permissive referendum. So as we move forward with Vinco, we'll just continue to monitor that to see if we need to either revise or put out another permissive referendum should we continue to use the capital reserve for that project. So just some information here for you, as well as the reports through year end and through the current period. As far as other items, our year-end audit is in progress. So we've received our data requests from our auditors, and we're beginning to provide the data that they need to conduct the audit. We're starting the process virtually, and we anticipate a site visit, probably just a one-day site visit from them in April to finalize the audit at that point. But so we are working with them currently. We also anticipate that we will receive the full amount of our tax levy from the town in the beginning of May. The amount of that tax levy was $18,049,409.70. And then the largest item for tonight, as we've been talking about, is our property casualty insurance renewal is coming up. The renewal date is April 1st. This year, we reached out to multiple brokers to get additional quotes, and the board interviewed the brokers, and we gave them information they needed to solicit quotes on our behalf. We had asked actually for a deadline of today to receive any proposals, and we did receive them earlier this week. We have received one quote from our current carrier, who is McNeil and Company. That's the insurance carrier we've been using for quite a few years now, and that one came through the broker Arthur J. Gallagher. And we also received a quote for Nymer, which is an insurance company that we have not used historically. That was presented by the broker Brown & Brown. The premium on our expiring policy was approximately $105,000. The proposed premium from McNeil for the upcoming policy was approximately $117,000, and the proposed premium from Nymer was approximately $168,000. So there's a resolution in front of the board this evening. If the board is prepared to make a decision at this time, obviously any decision has to be made prior to April 1st, so we ensure that we have coverage. And that's it. That's all I have in my report.
Thanks, Jamie. All right, next is the payment of bills. So I have a resolution I'm going to read.
Yeah, thank you.
I'll make a motion, bills be paid.
The motion is motion to pay bills and vouchers.
Second.
1 second, Anthony. Motion to pay bills and vouchers as presented. The board has been supplied with one set of bills and one credit card bill for board approval. Chief Tween has reviewed all prior to the meeting, except certiorari claims and those specifically marked as reviewed by the treasurer. The treasurer has requested the board approve the following: Warrant 1 dated March 10th, 2022, in the amount of $54,767.68, and a credit card bill dated March 18th, 2022, for $2,462.30, for a total of $57,229.98. I make a motion to pay those bills.
Second.
Paul Randall seconds it. Isan?
I'll call the roll. Commissioner Laurie,
Aye.
Commissioner Randallone,
Aye.
Commissioner Roach,
Those warrants just came in the email today, so I didn't have a chance to look at them, so I'm going to abstain.
Commissioner Carlo.
Aye.
Motion carried.
Thank you. Now we move on to the Chief's report. Chief?
Thank you, Commissioner. Good evening, everybody. The monthly activity report for February 2022, 280 alarms total, one fire-related call, 156 EMS or rescue calls, and we gave mutual aid 4 times, twice to the city of Mount Vernon, once to the city of New Rochelle, and once to the village of Pelham. And we did not receive any mutual aid in the month of February. The maintenance reports and fire prevention reports were emailed to the boards earlier this week. And currently, we have 3 members out on long-term absence. In the last 30 days, we had 2 members return to full duty from long-term absence, so that number is back down to what I would call normal. Not happy that we have 3 people out, but it always seems as soon as somebody goes off, somebody comes on. So we always have, in my 5 years as chief, my experience has been approximately 3 members on long-term absence as an average. Our transfer candidate, Kyle Steele, has completed his orientation training and was assigned to Group 4 on March 6th. I would like to welcome Kyle to the Eastchester Fire District and wish him good luck on his career with us. The next Career Fire Academy is scheduled to begin on Tuesday, March 15th. Eastchester has been allotted 7 spots for probationary candidates, and we're in the process of onboarding the candidates with civil service at this time. As requested by email, I asked the board to allow Lieutenant Dominic DiRienzo to be detailed to the Spring 2022 Fire Academy class as an instructor. And a separate email, I asked the board to correct the amount of days to extend Captain Tomasini's probation to correct number of 65 days, and now to end his probationary period on May 7, 2022. And that's the end of my report.
Thank you, Chief. Isan?
I emailed the board the February report for the website and essentially the secretary report. For the website itself, the language for the Board of Fire Commissioners and the hiring process was submitted to Civic Plus, so I'll show the board what it looks like once they upload it for a draft proposal. I also had a meeting with Civic Plus as well as the chief regarding content process so we could understand better how to upload future content once the site is live, and we continue to have meetings throughout the month of March and April, so we would have a better sense of what to present to the board once everything is up to before it launches. So I'll continue to send language to the board's way and essentially request feedback as it goes so we can upload everything beforehand. For social media, 8 social media posts were posted in February. I met with Captain Thomas Pentaval and the chief to discuss the smoke detector campaign for an educational resource starting out. That also will be a tab provided on the future website for Eastchester Fire District as well.
And I believe that you
Yes.
had sent us an email about the social media policy. Just the chief is in charge of that, and the Board of Commissioners, and you would like to also be, have authority to make decisions so that you can get in there. And like the website, you're developing this website, you're in charge of the website, well, for the Board of Fire District. I think I would like to make that resolution to give Isang the authority, the Fire District Secretary, the authority to work on the social, I guess amend the social media policy so that Isang doesn't have to try something, look at, then come to us and say, oh, can you approve this for me, and then go back and do it again. Just give her a little more authority. I think she's doing a great job. She will continue to do a great job. I have confidence in that. So does anyone agree with that and would second that resolution?
I'll second it.
Now the resolution hasn't been written, so
It's on there.
You got ahead of ourselves, Tom. Yeah, so a motion to adopt the
Number
amended
50.
social media policy?
and where is that written?
So the social media policy, just for
Okay,
those
so
2 paragraphs.
Basically
were
what I
sent to the
said,
board.
a motion to adopt allowing fire district secretary to have authority to make it work with the social media. Do you have anything to add that you would like to say?
None at the moment. I think either way that will help with a seamless experience online, and should anything come up, I'd always notify the board and the chief should I have any questions.
And Commissioner Ranalone already seconded it, so I guess you can call the roll.
Okay. All right. Commissioner Laurie?
Aye.
Commissioner Ranalone?
Aye.
Commissioner Roach?
Aye.
Commissioner Carlett?
Aye.
Thank you. Motion carried.
And did you want to discuss the recruitment initiative?
Yes, so this is just a preliminary conversation that the chief and I were having regarding a potential prep class for the exam, for firefighter exam next year. I know the chief might be able to speak a little bit more about the details of that exam, but that's something that we could collaborate on should the board agree to do more research on that and provide a potential event or events at certain locations throughout Eastchester, Tuckahoe, and Bronxville. This could be in the form of going to high schools, this could be in the form of going to community centers, but essentially if the board agrees with this, not that a resolution is being put in front right now, we could do more research and propose something at the next meeting.
What's your ideas, Chief?
So the first thing would be an outreach to notify the members of the public when the test would be, how to apply for it, and then as it came closer to the test time, so say either 3 to 6 months out, we could actually offer, prep classes. Maybe at one of the local community centers or a high school classroom. If anybody wanted to come, we can have our officers on overtime do prep class. And, you don't have to have any knowledge of firefighting to do well on the test. It's basic reading comprehension, math skills, things like that. There's prep books from the state, but some people may not know where to get them. If you go on the state Department of Labor website, there's prep books for firefighter exam. The county also has prep for CPAT. So informing people, how do I get hired as a fireman? Where do I go to apply for the test? And, what does the test involve? So it would be giving information to the public, and if the board was willing to spend some money, which I think we put money in the budget, I don't know if it was carried over this year. I thought last year's budget, we put some money in like $5,000 to $9,000
yeah,
to, possibly do an outreach to, go out to the local communities. We can go to the village halls and town halls, put signs up, put them in the schools, and, maybe even churches around, so.
I think you're on the right track when you're talking about the high schools. It's, like you said, you don't have to have any firefighting experience. It's just really a matter of test taking.
Right.
I think that obviously COVID when we talked about it initially, COVID had kind of squashed it. There was no one going into any high schools or anything like that. I would like, as an initiative, to go to the Board of Education meetings for Eastchester, Tuckahoe, and Bronxville if they thought that was worthwhile, but certainly I think Tuckahoe and Eastchester, and encourage them to add that to curriculum, not just firefighting, but it's my understanding the test is going to be June of 2023, the next firefighter exam.
I just know sometime next year. I don't know what month.
I remember reading an email. It could have been sent to my home address.
Right.
But I think they've already established that they believe the next firefighter's exam is going to be June of 2023. So I think a perfect opportunity for the Board of Education in Eastchester would be to offer a civil service prep class. They have all homemaking classes. They have all sorts of type of education in their curriculum. Why not teach these youngsters that aren't going to go to college or trade school how to take civil service tests, so that opens up an avenue for them? So I would really, make a resolution that the board, like Isang said, research, but with a firm intent to encourage all the boards of education in town to offer that as a curriculum to their seniors. That they go into the, I don't know how the curriculums are proposed. I know that in Eastchester High School, they have, or the Board of Ed for Eastchester has a curriculum person who is an administrator who works specifically on curriculum. It would be great. You talk to the guidance counselors with WISE all the time. I don't know if we're going to do that again this year or not. I think you said not this year, right?
Well, at the time, they were looking around December, January, and COVID was
Omicron was high,
exploding.
right.
So, yeah, I didn't know what the future was going to be.
And I think it's too late anyhow, and that's fine. But I think for 2023, if there's no other surge,
Right.
that's something that could be offered. But in advance, because like I say, they talk about that in December. I'm
Right,
talking about
right.
going into the Board of Education. I don't know who we'd offer, who would we send, if it would give Isang another job, or one of the commissioners ourselves would reach out, or just as a board, we could write a letter
Right.
and encourage the Board of Educations in town to consider adding practicing or learning how to take civil service tests as part of their curriculum. Does anyone agree with me or have any other thoughts?
Well, maybe you want to go in front of the school board meeting.
Well, I mean, obviously, I've never been to a school board meeting. Have you been to them? I don't know what that would be as a citizen. If you go into the school board meeting, you'd be basically acting as a private citizen to ask to speak. I'm saying as a board of fire commissioners, saying that we want to recruit as many youngsters in town to consider taking the firefighter test, and then encouraging the school boards to actually offer, and you know, we're talking about giving prep classes the
Right,
last
right,
couple months. We
right.
certainly could do that, but how much more efficient would it be if professional educators did that?
Yeah, like I said, it's math and reading comprehension, things like, you know, basic reasoning skills. But I would think the people to approach would be the superintendents, like Tuckahoe Superintendent, Eastchester, and Bronxville, and start there, and then have them guide us. Here's the director of curriculum, speak to that person, you know? So maybe a letter from the board to the 3 superintendents of the school districts to see if they would be open to that idea.
Cheryl, do you have any thoughts on what we're talking about right now?
I actually do, and I actually represent a number of school districts. I think reaching out to the superintendents is a very good idea. I also think guidance counselors, New York State has, as part of its curriculum requirements, career education for students. So we may not be able to change the curriculum, but it may already exist. I think the thought process is guidance counselors or any career coordinators or the superintendents. The superintendents would probably be the best place to start.
So then I'll make a resolution right now that the Eastchester Board of Fire Commissioners compose a letter to send to each superintendent of schools in our 3 school districts in the town of Eastchester, asking them if they would consider, or if there is a curriculum-based requirement already that they could make a class that would fit that. In other words,
Can I make a suggestion motion?
please.
Motion to authorize the legal counsel to compose a letter to be signed by the chair, introducing the fire commissioners to the superintendents of the school within the district, and to encourage career interaction for potential future firefighters at Eastchester Fire District.
And I would make that motion as Cheryl spoke it.
I'll second it.
Okay, I'll call the roll.
Thanks, Cheryl.
Commissioner Lori,
Aye.
Commissioner Ranalone,
Aye.
Commissioner Roach,
Aye,
Commissioner Carlo.
Aye.
Motion carried.
very good.
Thanks, Tom.
Thank you, Cheryl.
Yes, thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, next we have got 2 personnel issues. One is for badge number 139. So a motion I'm going to read to amend resolution number 35-2022, which authorized Fire Chief Tween or his designee to execute a MOU and firefighter badge number 139, but hereby moves to authorize that this MOU properly reflect the correct days as 65 and not 71 for the probationary
I'll
period.
second that motion.
Okay, I'll call the roll. Commissioner Lori,
Was that for Captain Tomasini?
They didn't want to mention his name,
I'm
just his
sorry.
badge number.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
I'll start over. Commissioner Lori,
Yes. Aye.
Commissioner Ranalone,
Aye.
Commissioner Roach,
Aye.
Commissioner Carlo.
Aye.
Motion carried.
The next is for a motion for badge number 216, motion to authorize that firefighter candidate number 216 may end his leave of absence LOA effective on March 12th, 2022, and on such date, he is restored to paid status and direct that he attend academy in March. I make that motion?
I'll second it.
I'll call the roll. Commissioner Lori?
Aye.
Commissioner Ranalone?
Aye.
Commissioner Roach?
I'm going to abstain just because it may be a hiring issue.
Commissioner Carlo?
Aye.
Motion carried.
Thank you. Okay, next, we're going to move on to our miscellaneous business insurance carrier, as was Jamie mentioned earlier. I make a motion that,
I would like to actually say something.
okay,
Jamie, I was really disappointed in your email of yesterday because none of us have expertise in insurance. And you're our treasurer, you're CPA, you have probably the most knowledge and you've been dealing with it the most. I would have really preferred that you engage that. I wanted some guidance. You know, I was hoping that you would look at the policy and you would give us your feedback. You know, especially after what happened last June with the workman's compensation, where if I hadn't asked a question, we might have put ourselves in a horrible pickle. You know, there was the possibility that the workman's compensation insurance, if we went for the 2-year plan, could have increased $100,000 the second year. And then if we chose not to take that, there would have been a $400,000 fine. I mean, you have to take more seriously your responsibilities as the treasurer of the fire district.
And it's not my responsibility to understand the
But-
ins and outs of the
Tom,
insurance.
because she's not a, that's what our brokers do, that's what our brokers for.
But the broker communicates with you. You were given that information, but you never shared it with the board.
What do you,
Well, when I asked you the question at a live meeting, I said to you, well, was there any fines or fees if we don't take the second year? And you shared with us that, yes, there is, it can go up $100,000, and if the board chooses not to take the second year, there's a $400,000 fine. We're talking.
They gave us a rate for both years. We had the rate. If you locked yourself into a 2-year contract and then decided you didn't want the second year, yes, there was a penalty. But I don't know what you're talking about, the 100.
Okay, my mistake, but I was under the impression, you'll have to go back to the meeting, that's what you told us as an answer. That there was the ability, because they only gave us the 246, and it was only a $5,000 savings. Yeah, but there was a massive $400,000 fine, which was actually 80% greater than the actual cost of the annual insurance. That's why I asked you those questions, so we'd have any information that you had given to us before we voted on it.
But the information was all there in the proposal from the insurance,
The 1,000-page proposal?
probably.
Okay. You knew the information. You didn't even have to bat an eye. When I asked the question, you could give us the information. I think that when something that serious comes up, you should share it with the board. You're the fire district secretary. You work for the board. You should actually try to protect the taxpayers of Eastchester. But
I wasn't recommending that you choose that option. There was another commissioner that
I
asked
know.
to look into, they might offer, if you ask for 2 years, because they wanted to stay with PERMA, they said, you might be able to get a better deal if you ask for 2 years. It was not something our broker had experienced before. It was something a commissioner had experience with, and we asked the question, and that was laid out in the proposal. Now, I wasn't recommending which proposal.
I didn't say that you were recommended. All I was saying is I would appreciate if you have information that you share it with the board. And this is the exact same reason. I said the exact same thing to Barry when we had the meeting. I actually put the onus on him, and then I said to him, you have to make all your communications with the commissioners. Up until that point, you were receiving all the information. And then you were giving us what you wanted to. That's all I'm saying is,
I gave you, I didn't keep any information.
not until I asked it, absolutely. But what if I didn't ask that question and we decided to try to save $5,000 and, you're saying now that there was a $100,000 raise. I'm pretty sure that's what you had told us at the meeting. I'm just asking for us all to work together and to protect the taxpayer. That's all I'm asking.
That's fine.
Okay, thank you, Jamie.
If Jamie's going to speak, the videographer would like her to go to the microphone. They couldn't hear what she was saying.
Okay. Do you want to speak anymore? Okay.
All right, so the motion to authorize and execute the paperwork necessary to have McNeil and Company as our insurer for P&C for the term of 4/1/2022 to 3/31/2023 in the amount of $117,537.89. And I'll make that motion.
I'll second it.
I'll call the roll. Commissioner Lori?
Aye.
Commissioner Ranalone?
Aye.
Commissioner Roach?
Aye.
Commissioner Carlo?
Aye.
Motion carried.
Okay, next, we have a revised 2022 board meeting schedule. Because we had a change in our venue as to where we can meet, we had to revise some dates for the balance of this year. And at this time, I'd also like to read a comment. Mary Marvin from Bronxville had wanted to be here tonight. She couldn't be here, but she'd asked that I read a brief message out to the public. And this is to the residents of the village of Bronxville. On behalf of myself and my fellow trustees, I wish to thank you for your generosity in allowing us to hold the Board of Fire Commissioners meetings at Village Hall for well over a decade at no charge and as a public service to our entire town. You have been most gracious in allowing us to host this very important board, and we thank you for your commitment to intermunicipal cooperation, intermunicipal cooperation and partnership. With gratitude, Mary Marvin. So that's from Mary Marvin. And so I'm going to make a motion to adopt the following revised meeting dates for the balance of this year. Of course, we're meeting here tonight in Town Hall, Eastchester, but the following dates will be for the balance of this year.
And do we have a meeting location for these dates?
We have, I think we're all set. There may be one date we may have to Zoom because it's not available here, but these are the actual dates right now.
I could share the dates. It's June and October for the dates that you see in front of you.
Okay,
So,
so-
and that'll be clear, or on the website will make or indicate where the location is if it's to be, determined.
Right, and everything
So-
else that we have is going to be
gonna
in
be
this.
here,
Okay,
yes.
so we have,
What if we don't need an executive session most likely this evening, but what if we do need to go for an executive session and we have the meeting here?
we'll have to do it in this room, either before or after, and then keep the public out.
Okay, and is that permissible to keep the public out of it? It is, okay. And we always have Main Street, right? The fire headquarters, we don't necessarily have to do a Zoom meeting.
No,
and-
no, we can always
And
meet
we
at one-
probably
yes.
can't do a Zoom meeting unless it's authorized for us. I think it's.
True, that is
we
true,
have to
yes.
have a
And we
public
can probably
meeting.
meet at Maine, which is fine, on those two dates. But the following dates for the rest of this year will be Thursday, April 14th, Thursday, May 12th, Thursday, June 16th, Thursday, July 14th, Thursday, August 11th, Tuesday, September 27th, Tuesday, October 18th, Thursday, November 10th, and Thursday, December 22nd. If any of those dates change, of course, we'll notify the public. But I make that motion to adopt those dates.
And that's fine, I just want to make one other comment.
Yep.
In the rules and regulations, it says that the fire board is to meet on the first and third, or is it the second
Second
and fourth?
Thursday of every month.
Excuse me?
Second Thursday of
No,
every
actually, it
month.
says two, second and fourth Thursday of every month.
I never knew that one.
That may be updated in the 65 or 99 rule book, which doesn't deal with the paid
You
firefighters.
found it, right?
In the 35 handbook, I did. I was
Right, but-
asking if it was referenced, if that's what you were referencing.
Yeah, it was number 36, you said?
It was in section A, and I believe, if I could find that email, I'll specify it, but it was in the 1935 handbook.
Yeah,
if the
but
chief
I
said
would
by
check the
saying-
65 and the
Well,
99
we don't use the
updates.
65 or 99, those are volunteer, the only
But if it
rule
says
book-
the board will meet on these days, because I think Commissioner Lori could be, I don't have the books in front of me.
Everyone has told me, you yourself, if you look at anything, it's the 1935 rules and regulations is the only rules and regulations that the career fire department uses. Is that, Steve, do you have any information to share on that?
That's all, I know there's two updates, but they do mention the commissioners' meetings, but they do pertain to volunteers. But the commissioners' meetings are mentioned in the later rules and regulations.
Okay, but what does the Eastchester Fire Department use as their official rules and regulations?
I don't know, I believe it's, I don't even know.
I mean, when you look at all these sick leave reports, you'll see the only one that's ever referenced is the 1935 one. So I'm.
Because it's dealing with the career firefighters. But the
Well,
board,
that's what we're dealing with here, is the career firefighters.
so you're talking about a board policy in the rules. So I'm saying that that policy may have been updated, and I would have to check the 65
So
and the
in other words,
99.
all the rules and regulations are in effect for the Board of Fire Commissioners.
Well, they're a bit
No,
antiquated.
we were specifically talking about meetings. So if the board changed it from twice a month to once a month, and it's updated in those updated books, either the 65 red book or the 1999 red book, then I would think that that was done by a majority of the board, but I don't have them in front of me, so I don't want to.
Anthony, do you have any information how the 1965 and 1999 rules, was it updated by the Board of Fire Commissioners? Or was it?
All I know, Tom, that I've always followed, that was the second Thursday of every month. Because the first Thursday of every month, all the volunteer companies had their meeting. So whatever had to be discussed there, then they brought it to the commissioners' meeting, which is the second Thursday of the month. Am I correct, Paul?
Yes, and I can say that from 1973, from at least 1973, there's only been one commissioners' meeting a month.
Exactly.
And it's always been the second Thursday of the month.
So then, by past practice, we're covered, so to speak. Is that true, Cheryl?
I would want to look at everything. I mean, past practice, different policies. I mean, we can look at this.
Thank
I
you.
think the fact is the board right now is making a motion to set their meetings for a certain date going forward. I think that's appropriate.
Yes.
Which we do every year anyway.
But, you know, in one of your emails to us, Cheryl, you mentioned that there are some inconsistencies between the rules and regulations and our practices, and that does cause some liability.
Yeah.
We were talking about that in the context of personnel. What you're talking about now is in the context of setting board meetings.
Very good. My apologies then.
Could I
Okay.
say something on the minutes? I think this schedule that Commissioner Carlo read off is very, very appropriate, because years ago, when I first came on the board, we had the meeting of these commissioners' meetings when everyone felt it was comfortable for them. I don't think, in 5 years that I was on that board, we had one meeting on the second Thursday of the month. We always had it whenever everyone was convenient, who was in the city, who was in Georgia, who couldn't make it because they had to go someplace, and we never had a meeting that way, and the public was always baffled. They never knew when to come to a meeting, wherever it may be. And we did rotate it at one time from different village halls in the town hall. But this is very appropriate, and I would go with this right now.
I do notice that as I look closer at it, that we go into Tuesdays in September, October. I believe that's by New York State law. But on Thursdays, December 22nd, don't we usually have it the second Thursday because it's 2 days after the election?
We did, but it was based on availability for this
Okay,
location.
very good.
But of course, if the board needs to revise anything, please let me know.
Yeah, we don't mean to have it right after the election.
No, I agree.
I would make a motion, we adopt a schedule that was already written.
I'll second it.
Okay, I'll call the roll. Commissioner Laurie,
Aye.
Commissioner Ranalone,
Aye.
Commissioner Roach,
Aye.
Commissioner Carlo.
Aye.
Motion carried.
Okay, so we discussed the social media policy revision earlier. We have grant writing project on here. Tom, do you want to discuss that?
Yep, well, Isang once again had given us a proposal of doing as a stipend our grant writer, and she was also present with us when we sat down with Congressman Bowman's office, and his staff had agreed, well, she already sent us a 82-page grant writing document. I don't know how well you got into that, but I perused it, and it's a lot of work, and it's a lot of thought. And Isang sent the proposal to the whole board. I don't know if you recall it, but she asked for a stipend of, I believe, $1,200 a month to take up those that duty for us. And I would like to say that, you know, we have a lot going on Chester Heights. It's going to be coming up later in the agenda. We're going to add another engineer's report. But were you at the Senator Meyer's meeting also? You were, correct. Well, Senator Meyer from, you know, the 37th Senate District of New York State, it came, her staff and her attended this Zoom meeting when Zoom was still allowed, And she gave us a lot of information. She was very helpful. She told us that she wanted to help us, whatever was necessary. Me and my ignorance had said, well, I think we should do this and that, and she just kind of laughed at me and said, well, that's not the way it works, which is fine. This is a learning process. But what she did tell us is that if you have an engineer's report, if you have put it out to bid, then you put those packages together and you submit that to her office, and then she'll work with that and try to get us grant money through the state. What we learned from Bowman's, our meeting with the Bowman staff, is when the federal government gives any money away to municipalities or anything, and they are working on flood mitigation, they're focusing on flood mitigation at this time, that all the money has to go through the state. The federal government does not give any municipality or entity such as ours any grant. If we want any money from the federal government, and I was thinking about Build It Back Better, and of course, New York State passed a $29 billion green bill last year, but the only way it can happen is if we go through the senator's office. She's agreed to help us. I think that we already have a job for Esang to do. She was present at both meetings. She understands the process. She knows what's going on. I think that we should assign this to her on top of her other duties that she already graciously does, and pay her a stipend to put a package together, with the help of all the other past staff that have information and can bring it all together. But we have the engineer's report. We've already put a lot of it out to bid. And it doesn't matter that it happened 3, 4, 5 years ago. It just like the SAM grant, right? I don't know if you'll give us an update on that, but we just put it together. We send it through the senator's office. She proposes it to the Senate, and I guess it goes into the Assembly, and they vote on it, and they decide if Eastchester Fire District or the town of Eastchester is worthy of being supported with their efforts to rebuild and to mitigate the flooding. Down in Chester Heights right now is the perfect example, because we have that work. Everything that she told us we had to do in order to be able to get any grant money, we have. So I think we should put that package together and get her to her office and let her work on it. We don't have much time, because in 2 months or 3 months, at the end of June, the legislature in New York ends. So if we put it together in the first couple of weeks of March and get it to her, she has April, May, and the middle of June to see what she can do for us. So that's my motion. I would like to give Esang the $1,200 a month stipend to start working on putting this grant package together and communicating with Senator Meyer's office and Congressman Bowman. I think it was Ms. Kama was the grant, who works in the grant office in Congressman
Yes.
Bowman's office.
Kama, yes.
So work with those people and their staff and do the best job we can to see if we can't get some relief for the Eastchester taxpayer. We got to do the work anyhow. We're already proposed it. We've already put it out to bid. We're going to have to pay for it. It would be really nice if New York State and the federal government could assist us. You're going to bring up another project. I believe it's a little premature, but we have lots of work to do, and it's not going to end, and we don't have lots of money to spend. We really need this help, and I think we're worthy recipients of it. And it's a small fee to pay Esang a stipend to put it together. Otherwise, it's never going to get done. And if we were worthy of it and would receive it, we're going to miss it because we didn't spend a couple of $1,000s. Meanwhile, we're spending hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Just one question, is the stipend once, or is it a certain?
It's a monthly stipend, $1,200 a month.
Okay, I
As
just
long
wanted
as
to-
she is the grant writing or whatever you would call it. And if you could put one together for us, Cheryl, it would be awesome that we could
I
vote
actually
on.
thought your motion was pretty good, I just didn't know that it was a monthly stipend. I just didn't know if it was a one-time or a monthly.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So do you believe that I could say I propose this motion, or would you like to condense it into words and then I can make it?
I can condense it, so it's a motion to create a monthly stipend of, was it $1,500?
$1,200.
$1,200.
Is that okay with you?
Motion to create a monthly stipend of $1,200 for working on, and what was the name of the grant?
Well, I guess it would be facility grant, a facility and flood mitigation grant. You know,
Work on facility and
construction
flood
facility.
grant.
Do you have a word that you would add, Jamie, to that?
Capital improvement or something
Capital
like that?
improvement is a great one. Thank you, Chief.
Okay. So motion to
Yeah,
create,
okay, so good, Cheryl, good.
nope, please, Chairman.
No, so, and they're okay doing this kind of like after the fact?
That's what they said has to happen. They
After
said
you start the job, then you go for the grant?
you have to have all it done before you can even present it to them. Because I was thinking like you present what you want to do, and then they approve it or disapprove it. She says it doesn't work that way. You already have to have voted on it and started to work, and then submit everything, just like we already bought the aerial ladder. What was it, in 2018?
Yes.
And now they're working on the SAM grant to reimburse us for it, or part of it.
Yeah, it was 2020. The person I was dealing in Amy Paulin's office retired, so I have a new contact, and I'm getting a status update on that grant.
And I'm sorry to interject those two together, but I just wanted to answer your
That's fine.
question.
All right, Cheryl.
And one more question, do we think this is gonna take 2, 3 months, 4 months? Do we know how long, or do we just wanna create the motion and then?
I think that it should be continuous. I think that once she achieves this one, she should move on to the next one. Like I said, we have continuous work. We have to rebuild the headquarters in Main Street. We have Bronxville Firehouse that's gonna come up later in the evening.
Okay, so I'm gonna change it slightly then. So motion to create a $1,200 monthly stipend for the continuous work on grants as assigned by Eastchester Fire District Board for ESONG. And
Fire District Treasurer, Secretary.
Yep, our district secretary. And we can start that on 3/11/2022. And that would probably be your motion. then
And
the
I would
board-
only amend it one way, that we give ESON the flexibility to come up with her own ideas for grant writing. That she doesn't need, certainly she work under the direction of the board, but if she could also make suggestions to the board, I'd like to work on this, I would appreciate that, if that was involved also.
Yeah, I do think that she always can make suggestions. I do think the grant she applies for should be at the direction of the board.
I agree with that, okay,
Yeah.
my mistake.
But that's okay. I think it's a good interjection. It's a good addition as part of the discussion. Was that motion clear? Was that okay? Or do you want me to try
It
to
was
repeat
perfect, and I will make that motion as our legal counsel spoke it.
I'll second it.
I'll call the roll. Commissioner Lori?
Aye.
Commissioner Ranalone?
Aye.
Commissioner Roach?
Aye,
Commissioner Carlo?
No.
Okay, motion carried.
thank you.
Okay, next is lieutenant detail for the fire academy. So I'd like to authorize, or make a motion to authorize Chief Tween to detail Lieutenant DiRienzo to the spring 2022 fire academy as an instructor.
I'll second that.
Could I ask a question first?
Yeah.
Sure. Am I correct, Jamie, in understanding, or anyone on the board, did the board approve, or, I don't even know the correct word, but initiate an assistant chief's position last month?
Yes, we approved that Jamie have the spot created by civil service.
Thank you, Jamie.
Is that correct, Jamie? Okay.
Oh, I was going to go more. So if the position's already been approved, and I abstained, and I didn't discuss it, Cheryl, this is towards you. I didn't discuss it at the time because it was adding a position to the Eastchester Fire District or Fire Department. So I abstained and stayed out of discussion based on your excellent counsel. Once it's already been established, then I can talk about it.
Oh, yeah, sure. I know you abstain sometimes from the hiring for a conflict, so, but if the position's been created, I don't know what you want to discuss with it, but you can discuss it.
So basically, sometime last year, you brought to the board that Westchester Civil Service is having certain tests for next year. We did not approve, thank you. We did not approve the assistant chief's test, correct? I think the only test we actually approved as a board was the chief of department's test. Am I correct in that?
We also did the captain test, but you're correct that we did not, we just said NA to the assistant chief because we didn't have the position at the time.
And then we would need, in that case, to, the next time Westchester County offers the assistant chief's test, then the board would have to vote on whether we wanted to make that test available to our membership, correct?
That's correct.
And we can make it available to both lieutenants and captain ranks, because we've done that in the past?
No, I believe the promotional field is just captains with 1 year in the position.
And how did they send it to the, last time when you got to take the test, where it was lieutenants and captains?
I believe at that time, there were no captains qualified to take the test.
Okay.
So they
But
may
all
have
had less than a
appointed
year?
somebody provisional, and then he had to take the test once he was appointed.
And my point being that I think Lieutenant Dominic DiRenzo would be an awesome candidate for assistant chief. He's a great trainer. He's dedicated. He always goes out to get the certification and everything that they need up in the academy. And therefore, if he was going to be able to take that test, so you're saying that there's no way the board can decide?
No, because we have, like I said, the civil service, the promotional field is captains with 1 year of experience in the captain position. So
Yeah.
that's who
All right.
the exam comes. Prior to that, you can promote somebody provisionally until we participate in the exam. But I don't know, I'd have to find out whether that has to be from the same field or whether you could temporarily appoint someone from the lieutenant rank. But I know for purposes of the exam, it's the captains.
And he would have to take the exam that the assistant chief test that we, so we have an approved one, so if someone took the test already, it doesn't matter, it'll be the next test.
That's right, because we
Yeah.
haven't sat for the assistant chief, we haven't
Right.
participated in that in a year, so we do not have any kind of list.
Can I comment?
Please.
I'd like to say, in the union, all our members are considered equal. I'd prefer if commissioners did not mention anyone by name who they thought deserved the spot. It creates a bias among the union, and you can have your position and your feelings, but that should be kept between the commissioners and not brought out in public.
Thank you for your point. I apologize to all the membership. You're absolutely right.
Okay, so,
But, so how many officers from other departments have gone up there? Like, March 1st, I asked you, and then you responded last night.
Right.
So, but you only talked about Eastchester Fire Department.
But you asked me to go back 10 years, and I don't have access to that information because I wasn't chief 10 years ago. So I just had to go, I had to call, certain people to see who went up there. And now you would like it for every department.
Well, that's what I meant initially,
But
when I
but
distinguished officers.
I didn't
that had
realize
been
that.
there, yeah.
So for me to find out, every instructor that was detailed, like this current academy is going to have 8 instructors up there for the whole class, because they have 42 or 46 people in the class. It's a
So
very
obviously,
large
we're
class.
gonna send up one, and
We're going to send up one.
Many other departments. are
New
gonna send up.
Rochelle is sending, the academy director is going to be a deputy chief from Mount Vernon. Arlington Fire Department in Dutchess County is sending somebody full-time. So there's going to be 8 instructors up there because they're going to have 8 squads of probationary firefighters. So that's why we got asked. Normally, the class isn't that big, and if the cities step up, they have officers detailed to, like a training officer might go up there. But for us, we don't have an administrative training officer, so that's why it has to be a line officer. And the person that we're discussing has all the certifications he needs to teach classes. He's very good with technical rescue. And so that, seemed like a natural fit. That's the kind of classes that they take in probie school.
Right. I do my due diligence. I try to investigate everything. I ask questions. I don't think it's a waste of time. I think it's very important so I can make informed decisions. And that's all I was doing then. I wish we had done this a week ago when I had sent the information.
Right.
But I didn't hear from you, so it was kind of in the dark.
Right.
But I think I have enough information now.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Sorry for not getting back to you sooner.
okay, so I made the motion, I think Paul Randalone seconded it.
Yes.
Isam?
Okay, I'll call the roll. Commissioner Laurie?
Aye.
Commissioner Randalone?
Aye.
Commissioner Roach?
Aye.
Commissioner Carlo?
Aye.
Motion carried.
Thank you.
Thank you, commissioners.
Okay, next is FOIL requests on the Eastchester.
Well, we
You gonna table
continue.
that, or is that gonna? Oh.
Sure, yeah.
Oh, okay.
You know, the Eastchester Fire Department or Fire District is always receiving FOIL requests. There's administrative costs, there's legal costs. I think if we're doing the work, why not make it available for the public? One person is making, they think that this information is important enough to attain, and by law, the Freedom of Information Law, we have to provide it as a public entity, and I have no problem with that. What I'd like to do is to give it to everybody. I think that we have this updated website that it used to be we could only put three things on the website. As a matter of fact, when we put up next year's budget, last year's budget had to come down. I think it's much improved. Am I correct? That we can,
It will be, yeah.
Yeah, we can put a lot more of information on the website. I don't see any reason why we don't put our FOIL request on the website. Who requested it, what they requested, what the district was capable of providing, and the administrative and legal costs for that. Cheryl, do you have any thoughts on this?
I think I would like to think about this and maybe talk to you about it, and talk to the board about it maybe in some recess for legal at some point. Because I'll be honest with you, this is the first I'm hearing about it. So there could be some legal ramifications for this. I do appreciate where you're coming from for transparency. But I think I would reserve my comment as to whether this should be done or not until I've had maybe more than a few moments to think about it.
Okay, my apologies. I thought I included you on the emails, but what I will say is we'll table the FOIL request for Eastchester Fire Department website until legal counsel has researched it and given the full board her opinion. Move on.
Okay.
No, I want to say something on the FOIL thing. Cheryl, could you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Okay, some of this stuff has been going on quite a while, okay? And some of it has been answered 2 and 3 times over. And it's the same individual asking the same questions over and over, just to try to slander some people. And I'm one of them. You know, and it's getting very sickening to see the same thing coming up since 2014. It was repeated by previous boards, and it was solved. And it just keeps coming up, the same situation. I could understand if you want something foiled from 6 months ago or a year ago, but we're talking 2014. And it's just going around like a merry-go-round, just keep going around, and it never stops. So, my opinion, I'm against it. Thank you.
You're against people foiling or
No,
making it
this
public?
foiling that's coming up now, Tom, and you know what I'm talking about. It's been going on since 2014, and the man has been given the answer a dozen times over. And you were on the previous board with me, Tom, when the chairman...
I understand what you're saying.
When the chairman put a stop to it and said, let's solve it, and we solved it. We gave answers. We gave answers from both the citizens that were out there, the Volunteers Officers Association, the Benevolent Association. We gave all the proper answers. But this thing just keeps coming up and up. And usually when something's over, it's over. But not this here. So this part of the foil that went on the email were 14 was it, Chief? 14 emails that were trying to be resolved. I'm against it.
I appreciate your frustration, but there's no way the fire district can say we're not going to accept any foils. It's just a...
No, I'm not saying that, Tom. I'm just saying the same ones over and over. If I ask you a question, you give me an answer, and I keep harping on the same question, you're going to finally tell me how many times you want the answer. And that's all I'm saying, Tom.
Well,
I'm sorry, well, Anthony, I don't want to get into this now, but, I mean, obviously, he doesn't feel he got the answer he wanted, or the right answer, an answer at all, for that matter. I don't know, I'm just saying.
You know, I hear you, but, you know, sometimes when I get an answer to something, or you get an answer to something, you're happy with it. Tomorrow, you may get an answer you're not happy with it, or satisfied
I think
with
it's
it.
more than just not the answer he wanted to hear. I don't think
Yeah.
he's ever gotten an answer that he felt was acceptable.
So in other words, it's going to go on until he gets what he wants.
well, did anyone read the foil?
I read it, yeah, I mean,
Okay, well, it's not, he's asking for something new. I mean, yes, he put in all the information that he had, obviously, but what he's doing is, he's asking for up to present. He got his answer to 2017 or something like that.
And he got his
now
answer
he's
back to 2014
And now
also,
he's
Tom.
asking up to 2021, I believe.
Yeah, you're correct.
And that was my question. Did anybody ask the agencies that may possess that information for that information?
I believe maybe Isang wants to speak to it. She answered partially, and then the stuff that was not provided was FOIL appealed, and then I responded.
In Isang's defense, she had just gotten the job. So she must have had been given guidance on how to go about it, because it was a very...
Okay,
So can I
Cheryl guided
speak for a moment?
Thank you, Cheryl, please.
You're welcome. So I think part of the concern here is a agency like the Eastchester Fire District gets FOILs and we have to respond. If Eastchester has those records get reviewed under public officers law to see if they should be disclosed, redacted, or completely denied. I believe the denial on this one that you're talking about, and we haven't used any specifics, but I'm reading between the lines here, I believe those records, those extra records, do not exist. And I think the question that you're having is, does Eastchester have an obligation to go to another entity, especially one that's already can be FOILed itself, and request those records from there? I actually called the Committee on Open Government. I spoke to Christine O'Neill, and she confirmed with me that no, if Eastchester does not have those records, there's no obligation from Eastchester to ask another entity for those records under FOIL. So I
Perfect.
think that is what's going on here. If the board would like to, by a majority, make a motion to request those records from another entity, you can, or a person individually as an individual taxpayer, like the person who's asking the records from us, can reach out to that entity, right? Because some of those entities are FOILable, have to respond to FOIL as well. But there is no obligation from Isang or the fire district to reach out. If the Board of Commissioners as a majority want to, they can make that motion. Hopefully that cleared.
That was perfect. That I did, that was, oh, sorry.
Let me finish it on that motion. This all went on, all these particular FOILs all went on when I was on the board. And as I said before, it just kept getting reiterated, and he was given his answers. For 2 years that I was off this board, there was never anything mentioned about this again. Since I came back on this board, re-elected by the taxpayers, the same FOILs came all the way back again. Why? I don't know. Maybe it's because of me. I don't know. But these same FOILs, Cheryl, came back after I got back on the board, after all those answers were given.
Yep, and sadly, people can submit FOILs. I mean, obviously, records aren't created, and the fire commissioners do not seem to be keen on trying to create new records by requesting those FOILs from someone else. And again, as I checked with Committee on Open Government, under FOIL, it's not an obligation of yours as a fire district, a Board of Fire Commissioners. If we have the records, we deal with it. Not having those records, according to the Committee on Open Government and Public Officers Law, is a proper denial for those records.
And as long as the board has no liability, I'm completely happy with the resolution. That's all I was trying to make sure, that we weren't giving ourselves any more liability. You explained it excellently, Cheryl. Thank you.
Okay, we're good?
Yep.
All right, next is the rewriting of antiquated rules and regulations from 1935. That's yours, Tom.
Yep, well, you have advised us that we may have a little bit of liability, Cheryl, is that the rules and regulations say one thing, they're not being enforced, and we've, previous boards and chiefs have allowed practices to be contrary to the rules and regulations. And my solution is, let's rewrite the rules and regulations so that they match practice, or you know, negotiate, because these are work rules and they affect the membership, and we sit down and we come to an agreement as a board and all the interested parties, and update them so that we're no longer using rules and regulations from 1935. It's basically 80 years ago that we're, or over 80 years ago possibly, that we're pigeonholing ourselves to. It's 14 typed pages. It shouldn't take that long. A couple of those pages are really not even necessary anymore. I would like the board to consider, either revising or rewriting using the rules and regulations. Now I've learned that you consider the 99 and the 65 as valid rules and regulations that we'd also have to consider.
Not for the career members, but for
Well, I'm
board.
not, I don't think we need to mess around with rules and regulations for a defunct entity that's no longer really, while they are an umbrella group under the Board of Fire Commissioners, and that's why they report annually to us, they're not responding. I would like to make a career firefighter, career department rules and regulations and hopefully it'll be dated 2022. And that, I think, would be a vast improvement to 1935 rules and regulations that give the board liability because they're not being enforced.
Well, what liability exactly, Tom?
Well, mostly for the chief, because he's in charge of enforcing the rules and regulations. And do you want to go into the specifics right now about what it is?
Well, I mean, I know some commissioners feel that.
You again missed this special meeting that we had, but rule number 6 on page 20 states that firefighters are not allowed to have outside interest or employment.
Okay, that being said, firefighters for the past 60 years have had part-time jobs and side jobs.
There's the liability.
But it's not
There's
liability. And also, you're
inconsistencies.
referring to a book that back then said firefighters work 6 days a week, 12 hours a day.
Well, it doesn't say that.
It does say it.
Does it?
Yeah.
What section of that does it say?
It's on page 6 or 7, the page you cited. So it's an antiquated book.
Exactly,
But the
so we
fact
should
is,
rewrite it, that's what I'm saying.
But you can't tell guys now, you can tell guys,
I'm not saying that.
no, but what are you telling them?
I'm saying that we're not enforcing the rules and regulations as written, so let's rewrite them so that let's write them
Okay,
as.
we can rewrite, yeah, that's fine. I mean, but past practice for the past 50, 60 years, I don't see the liability. But that's fine, we can.
Cheryl, you can comment on Paul Carlo's comment.
We've kind of talked about this. We've gotten legal advice via email. I really don't want to give legal advice, especially if we're going to talk about negotiating this with the union and talk about rewriting these. There is inconsistency. I will leave it at that. I do think that the board should educate itself, and we should talk about maybe either coming up with a 2-member committee or maybe setting up some type of.
I do think we need to really update if whatever policies exist out there, we do need to update them. I don't know if they even exist or if they're on the drive someplace. We don't have any actual formal policies, but that's fine.
I think you have lots of things that are kind of out there and intermixed, and I don't think, and I've said this via an email, maybe pull them together and have somebody review them so that they can actually be potentially addressed. And if the board, I think, and it does have to be negotiated with the union.
So I would like to make a motion, as Cheryl spoke, our legal counsel,
I'm all
to
for.
establish a committee to look into rewriting the rules and regulations to update them to 2022.
This is not going to take overnight,
No, of course not.
And it's not going to take one sitting either. This is going to take many, many hours to do this.
I don't think so.
I
think
do,
that-
because if we rewrite this thing, I want to be there, and it's not going to take overnight. We've changed rules and regulations and many different things, and it has to be rewritten, and it has to be reread at 3 different meetings
So
to get approval.
You're asking basically the union to open up the agreement.
And,
before
and,
October.
and we're going to, if we're going to rewrite this thing, we're going to need delegations from the volunteers, delegation from the paid personnel, delegation from the officers also. We're not just going to, commissioners are not just going to do this alone. I hate to put a burden on something, but am I correct, Steve, wouldn't you want your delegation on that too?
Yeah, it's just going to be a one-night thing because we have to set up parameters. We can't look at one thing and it affects our contract or it affects other policies in place. So there have to be rules put in place to what we're going to speak about and what we're going to change. We just can't go in there and say, we're going to do this and we'll deal with the other problems it creates later.
That's what I'm just talking, I just said
You can
that.
say at the board, the podium, Steve. I think that's absolutely right, and I don't know if you could hear Cheryl, because, you know, the microphone's here, so she's picked up on the recording, but that's exactly what she said, that there is going to be negotiations. 2 years ago, the union, a committee from the board, I was included in that, and a past commissioner, and we sat down with the union. Was it a hardship?
I'm saying it's doable, but
Of course.
the rules and regulations may affect other aspects of our job covered by our CBA, and we can't allow that. You know,
Say that again?
The rules and regulations, changes in that might affect our CBA, which is doesn't expire till the end of 2024. So we'd have to set up parameters like, okay, whatever we discuss now, if it affects the contract, would have to be discussed after the contract expires. I'm not going to open the contract to
Yeah, no, we wouldn't. I don't think we should.
negotiate these regulations.
So I think what we do is establish a committee that if Anthony wants to be on it, I think that the volunteers on their own have updated. They're in a much better position in the fact that they have rules and regulations updated to 1999. I would like these new rules and regulations to be for the fire department, the career fire department. So naturally, you would sit in on the negotiations. I think the best thing would be for the board to establish a committee. We get the rules and regulations on a Word document instead of on a scan, and then we start working on that Word document in one color, and cross-outs and additions. And then the union gets that, and they work on they take it from there, and they have their own cross-outs and additions, and then it comes back, and then we do this maybe 4 or 5 times. I think it'll be hammered out.
Well,
I'm not saying it's going to be done in a month, but it could be done before the end of the year, or certainly before, by the end of next year.
There might be aspects of that will go quickly, like when you feed the horses and things like that. But other than that, there's other aspects in there that might not go so quickly. I'm not against this at all. It's just might go as fast as we all hope it would go. But I think it can be done by the end of the year.
If we don't start it, it'll never get done.
No, I agree. We should start it.
If we start it and it takes 4 or 5 years, then at least we started it, and at least we reduced the chief's liability, so no one can say to him, hey, chief, you're not obeying the rules and regulations. At least he can say, yeah, but at least they're being negotiated and being worked on so that they'll come out with a document that I can enforce.
I have no problem starting the process. No problem.
How do you, chief, do you have any comments?
Yeah, I think like you said, it's like to update the rules and regulations would make my life easier because, you know, there would be defined rules, you know, so there'd be less complications.
And we may not be able to eliminate all the inconsistencies, but we should certainly try to eliminate the majority of them. So Cheryl, any more comments from you?
So what is your motion, Commissioner?
Well, it's basically to start the process, to start a committee. If Anthony wants to be on the committee, that's fine. If I'm a solo committee, that's fine with me. But we start a committee, the board starts writing what they would like to see the rules and regulations look like. And then it's given to the union so that they can respond.
So it's a motion to, and I think you need to ask Commissioner Laurie if he's interested, but, so it sounds like it's a motion to create a committee to maybe update and consolidate the rules with Commissioner.
And practices and policies that are already established over the years since
We're not, if we get this committee, we're not rewriting it. We're just going to change it and then get an approval to rewrite them. We're not going in there, rewrite them like, I can't tell Stephen, your union members aren't to park in the back of the parking lot anymore. They got to park on the street. We're just going to establish the changes and then come back with approval to rewrite them.
Anthony, can I make
Right.
one comment?
Yes, go ahead.
It would start with a memorandum of agreement that the representatives from both entities, the committee from the fire board, has no authority You know, just like the letter that other legal counsel, Paul, wrote for us when we sat down to do the CBA, that these are just talks, it's not authoritative,
Okay.
nothing that we say is going to be established as fact. The union will understand that we have no authority to speak for the entire board, and the union signs the agreement saying that their executive board has no because I'm gonna assume you're gonna send it out to whole membership to vote on. Right. Yeah, so it's just a process of starting something that hopefully will get finished. If there's a lot of areas where it gets boggled down and it takes years, well then, someone will have to replace me.
And also, Stephen's going to bring it back to his delegation. Now, his delegation is going to say, we want a lieutenant, we want a captain, we want a firefighter on it, plus himself as president of the local. Well, there's going to be quite a few people on this thing.
Well,
right
you
now.
did recommend the volunteers. I would prefer to keep the volunteers out of it. They have their own updated 1999 rules and regulations. They're not active at this point. I don't see any point in bringing them in to.
So then everything, what you're saying now, everything that's in that book that says volunteers, you're going to strike out?
Possibly, or maybe not, because there might be something in there that we want to adapt.
Okay, but
I would love to see a tour commander instead of a captain to assist the chief in his duties.
But that's where I say we have to reread that, because if you're going to be striking out a lot of things about volunteers, then why don't we strike out a lot of things about the paid personnel?
Well, we might. You're absolutely right. There might
Okay.
be a lot stricken out by the paper.
All right.
And there might be a lot added. We have no idea because we haven't started the process. This is the first step.
Okay, like I say, Tom, this is not going to do overnight, and I kind of doubt this is going to get done by the end of the year, because these meetings take a long process. You could ask Commissioner Ranalone, when we were rewriting our rules and regulations in our own company, how long did it take, Paul?
Long time.
Well, I find the executive board to be very reasonable.
Yes,
They
absolutely.
They have an interest in doing it. I think the chief is obviously going to be involved. He has an
Absolutely.
interest to do it. What I did notice, the fire district secretary is called the clerk, so I think we should update that. And we might give E-Sign the opportunity to define what she believes the fire district secretary job is. There's no mention of the fire district treasurer in it. I believe that we'll ask Jamie to give us a summary of what she believes should be included in the fire district treasurer portion. There's a lot to do.
Yes,
to update it.
absolutely. You're just answering your questions. You're going to make Eson help us out, Jamie help us out, the union help us out, the chief help us out. There's going to be a lot of input on it,
We'll
Tom.
work together
Yes,
in
absolutely.
a reasonable and respectful way.
Absolutely.
And eliminate our inconsistencies.
Okay.
So, do we have to summarize this resolution? Because I don't think we can vote on a 15-minute discussion. So, to make it as simple as possible, why don't we just do the first step? The board I want to make a resolution for the board to establish a committee to look into rewriting the rule, to update the rules and regulations of the 1935 book.
I'll second it.
I'll call the roll. Commissioner Laurie?
Not to rewrite, just to establish a committee, what we're talking about, right? Am I correct?
The committee is, the purpose of the committee.
First, we're going to establish the committee. Then we're going to sit down and talk to rewrite. But what we're doing now is just establishing a committee. Am I correct? I could be wrong.
You are wrong.
Okay.
Because we're establishing a committee to rewrite the rules and regulations of 1935, to update them to 2022 or 2023. Who knows? You might be the chairman on that when it finally is done.
I hope so, but right now, if we're going to vote on it, I'm only going to vote on it just to establish the committee, not to rewrite nothing.
Well, that's fine. You'll vote however you want, but
Okay.
it is to rewrite them.
Okay.
And do you continue your second?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, I have one question, though. So,
Sure,
so
please.
if any of these rewritings require the union contract to be reopened, then
No,
what?
no, we're not gonna do that. He already said it's out of the question. I have no interest in doing that. If anything that happens that we can't settle because it has to wait to 2025, or actually, we wrote the contract in 2019 for 2020, so, you know, I'm hoping that the next contract's negotiating before it's expired. So maybe it might have to wait till 2024 to be settled. Otherwise, you just leave, whatever we can't agree upon has to be left. That's the way I would do it. If there's no agreement, then you just leave what it's written now.
So as opposed to.
You don't strike it out. You have to let
As
it
opposed to
stand.
dealing with this at the time of the renewal, you want to start it now?
Well, because it's not, it's certainly more than just the collective bargaining agreement. I don't, Steve, do you have any idea how much of the collective bargaining agreement might be affected by this?
No, I'm not sure. Most of the procedural things and what designations individuals have probably go very quickly. That doesn't involve our CBA at all. I'm just concerned, there's nothing in there I can think of that involves our CBA, but I just want to leave it, I want to protect myself that the CBS will remain closed throughout this until 2024.
So you've already established the first parameter.
Right. And
That's
then
no
other than
problem.
that, if it doesn't affect the
And I will
CBA, we go
accept that
forward.
as part of the resolution.
Okay?
Okay, I'll continue calling the roll. Commissioner Laurie,
No.
Commissioner Ranalone,
Aye.
Commissioner Roach,
Aye,
Commissioner Carlo,
No?
motion failed.
okay.
Okay, smoke detector campaign, Mr. Renalo, is that something you're working on?
I have one more question. You mentioned that the board has some liability. How does a board member protect himself from a liability when he has no option going forward? Cheryl?
Is that a question for me, Commissioner?
Yes. How do the commissioners protect themselves going forward?
I think you just attempted to clarify a situation. So you cannot act without a majority of the board. So I think you've attempted what you've attempted to do.
So then it's just a done deal. The potential liability remains. What if someone comes up with a resolution next week, or do we even need a resolution for the chief to start enforcing the rules or regulations, or does he have to start enforcing them as written?
We're going to go into executive session. Let's discuss this in recess for legal as part of that.
Very good. Thank you, Cheryl.
What about an amended motion if the purpose of the committee was to suggest edits to the full board? They're not changing the rules, they're just making their suggestions to the rules to be changed. Because I think, Commissioner Laurie, are you understanding that your committee will be changing the rule book? Because I think the purpose of the committee is to just suggest what needs to be updated in the rule book as it's written.
Well, that's why I
Right.
said we have no authority to do anything.
Right,
unless
until the full board
has
votes
approved
on it.
Yeah.
Right.
Right. Okay, so I thought that you thought that the committee would be changing the rule book.
Yes, that's what I thought.
No, it would have to come back to the full board before any changes could be made for discussion. So
Are you
I don't know if that
suggesting another
changes your
vote?
mind.
No, unless you thing it, but I'm not going to re-vote on it again.
I guess it won't
So
matter.
good.
Yeah, okay.
Thank you.
Okay.
But, please.
Oh, smoke detector?
Yes, we're,
Campaign, sorry.
we're attempting to start a smoke detector campaign in the town. There's a need for the residents out there, whether you live in a private house or an apartment building, everyone should have at least one smoke detector in their living space. A lot of fires have happened recently or in the past, and will happen in the future, in residences that don't have operating smoke detectors. And what the department would like to do is purchase a number of 10-year smoke and CO detectors, carbon monoxide detectors, that have a 10-year battery installed in them. It's, and we could, when we start up our website, residents can click onto the website and request the fire department to install the smoke detectors in their apartments or houses, if they so wish. It would be at no cost to the residents. The fire department would purchase the smoke detectors if we can get them at a good enough price where we can, get a number of them, and it would certainly save lives in the future.
And they would be put in place.
Yes, we would install them.
The fire department's gonna.
Union rep?
Yeah,
Yeah, like I guess it would be.
just screw them into the ceiling.
Yeah, we didn't discuss that. We talked
Yeah, I
about, yeah,
I think-
we talked about, first of all, I thought that we were talking about dual sensor smoke detectors, ionization and photoelectric, not smoke and CO.
Oh,
Because
okay.
depending on where you put it, you could have a smoldering fire that gives off a lot of smoke, or like a kitchen fire, a flaming fire that doesn't give off much smoke. And different smoke detectors go into different parts of the house. So we were going to do a campaign to educate people with a brochure that showed them which type of detector was suggested for the bedrooms and the hallway areas, and then which types were like for the kitchen areas. So I believe that's what we discussed. I don't know,
Yeah,
Isan is
and,
working on a brochure.
Sure, so I think, because we're still having preliminary conversations, and the research that we can do to propose to the board would be about this, essentially an educational resource on smoke detectors. I think there was another level to it where, and you could talk to fire prevention, that they still had to find out if that was something, essentially if someone requested that the fire district goes into their home to install something, I think there were a few things they wanted to further discuss about that, because I think you mentioned a waiver, stuff like that. So it's not something we've really been able to make concrete to propose to the board, but definitely for the educational portion, we could make a brochure, distribute it as directed by the board to educate the residents on safety.
Yeah, making
sorry,
them
Mr.
available, but I didn't think that we discussed installing them. Because
Okay.
again,
Well, there's no point. I mean, what was the cost? Did you do any preliminary investigation? to the
Yeah,
cost?
so the smoke detectors we were looking at, for the 10-year battery dual sensors, I think they were like $50 a piece. We could buy a cheaper one for like $9 a piece, but again, it doesn't have that dual sensor of the photoelectric and ionization. So we were trying to see, do we want to buy the $50 one that's better protection, or do we want to buy the $9 one, and then we can buy more of them and get them out to more people? So we didn't have a defined budget, so I didn't know what kind of numbers we're talking, if it's $50,000, or are we talking $5,000? And that would make a big difference on what we were going to provide to the taxpayers.
Well,
Well, hopefully we can have those answers by the time the fire department website gets put up.
and I think that I like Esong's thing, is really let's educate the people, and I think we should aim to have all the information out by Fire Prevention Week in October, before the heating season starts in 2022. I don't, I'm not, it would be very difficult to buy a $50 smoke ionization heat detector so that somebody could just throw it on their shelf and it never be used.
Right.
I know 2 years ago I recommended that we go out and buy batteries.
Right.
And I can hand out $1 battery. And if half of them end up in a transition radio, well, that's unfortunate, but I can afford that. But if, hopefully half of them will end up in smoke detectors, and they will save lives. But to purchase something as expensive as what you're talking about, and then not even have them in place to be effective, because everyone wins. They're going to mostly go into multiple dwellings, most likely. Certainly, we wouldn't exclude anybody. So if a residential person, if we purchased them, I'm saying, if a residential, a single-family home wanted one, we'd certainly have to give them. Although by current building code, I believe they all have to be online now. Electrical tied into electricity. So that would kind of rule out the firefighters assisting them. Certainly, the public areas of these buildings should have them.
Right.
Fire prevention is probably inspecting to make
Yes.
sure they do, and they're all up to date. So the point is just to get them into the apartments to make sure that there's a fresh battery in an apartment, so that in case of a fire, there is working, because the neighbor benefits, obviously the apartment dweller benefits, the fire district benefits, because the firemen are getting a call quicker, because someone hears the alarm go off, they call the fire department. The sooner the fire department gets there, the better chance that they're gonna have of making a rescue or extinguishing the fire without great difficulty. But it looks like this is going to be, I love your idea, Paul, I really do, and I wish it could have happened as you proposed it, but since it's a huge roadblock, I think it's just a matter of getting it on the website, informing the people, like you say, get out flyers, hand out people, and continue to make public announcements that smoke detectors and heat detectors are important. Make sure the one in your house is working, and protect your family and your neighbor, and the firefighters who are responding to help you, and possibly save your life and definitely extinguish your fire. I think that's the way we have to go, and then we have the new website up and running, and certainly that can go on Twitter and all the other, or...
You definitely share it on the social media platforms,
Yeah.
of course.
Okay.
Well, my idea was that we reach out to the 3 communities when they have their community days. Like, Tuckahoe has a street fair. Eastchester has a safety day where we demonstrate with the hearse tool. We get a car and cut it up, and we have our smoke trailer. So when they have those community outreach days, the police department's there, EVAC's there, the fire department's already there. We could set up a table with, a couple hundred smoke detectors, and if any resident needs them, if we notify them, hey, the fire department's gonna be at the Eastchester Safety Day on Saturday, and they'll be giving out free smoke detectors. If anybody needs them, come by between 1 and 3 or whatever time the safety day is running. So I was kind of thinking that way to get them into people's hands without any sort of liability of installing them, and, because who has concrete ceilings, and now we're drilling, and someone's gonna hit a water line or something.
Well, I think they were to replace existing smoke detectors.
Yeah, but the screws aren't necessarily gonna line up, and, it's.
Yeah. I mean, I love the idea. If they're not being installed, it's really not. I think you're putting smoke detectors in back of cars.
I think some other fire departments have had good experience with it. I think Fairview up by Westchester Community College has done it. They've had smoke detector giveaways.
I'm sure they've given out a lot of them.
Yeah, and I can't say how many.
But do they have any idea how many of them actually got installed?
I couldn't say,
Yeah. I mean, if the people are made aware of it, then they're going to go out and get them. Certainly, you should have where they can be accessible, websites and things like that, where they can be ordered. You can certainly make well, I don't know if you can do that, actually make certain brand recommendations. That's probably not a good idea. But certainly, certain type recommendations.
Right, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and that's what Esong's working with the flyer, and going to put stuff on our website and links to NFPA and, places like that that have all, OFPC that have smoke detector safety and, all kinds of fire safety information. So that's definitely going to be an outreach once the website is up and running in June, hopefully.
Yes.
Awesome.
All right, well, thanks.
Sorry to confuse the issue.
Next one is Station 3. So Station 3 is Bronxville, for those who don't know, and of course, Station 3, Bronxville, their floor is also has been shored up for years.
Since 2005, the engineers have said.
So it's been a while, and I know that past board members have decided to wait until one job is done to start the other one, but I don't think we have that luxury, and I asked the chief to reach out to a firm that worked on some firehouses in Yonkers, just get an idea, an architectural firm, which I think have not contacted you just yet, but...
Oh, yeah, they did. I forwarded that information to the board earlier this evening. I only got it at like 4 o'clock today, so as soon as I got it, I sent it out to the board. So they did have a proposal for engineering services, but if you want to wait till next month,
We can just discuss
they didn't
next
say
month.
it's unsafe, but the engineering firm that does come do the inspections was saying we're getting to the point where shoring won't be enough. So it's basically, we've
Well,
let it
we
go.
also had some issues with getting quotes.
Well, this would just be to have an engineer come out and
No,
look
but I'm
at
saying,
it.
but to have the floor done, we can't, I don't want to...
Yeah, no, but this engineering firm, just like UES, would help us with the RFP and all that kind of,
Right. So I think it's something
technical
we should
expertise.
start to look at and start really to get moving along.
Yeah, take a
Well, I
look.
agree with you 100%, Paul. We certainly don't want another Chester Heights where in 1976, the board decided that the floor should be replaced. And then in 2005, instead of replacing it, what I believe, I know there was an engineer report done in 2004. I believe it went out to bid in 2005 because an ex-commissioner told me that the board wanted to spend $125,000 to replace that floor, and instead he put a Band-Aid on it for $45,000. I don't know if that's absolutely correct, but I don't know where else he would have got the $125,000 figure from, except for if it went out to bid and that's what was bidded. Do you have any more information on that?
No, I
So,
don't have anything on that.
But, you know, and so that floor needed to be replaced 15, 17 years ago. But the danger of what you're talking about is Nathan, our other legal counsel for putting things out for bid, has authorized a package that our current engineer, UES, has put together for ADA and heating plant in Chester Heights, Station 4, and that has set and done nothing with since November.
Right.
So you're talking about hiring another engineer for another firehouse to replace that floor while you already have a complete package ready to be put out for bid, and you're not discussing that.
Well, we still have work on Station 4 to do. We have a holdup.
But that's been ready. Cheryl, are you familiar with what I'm talking about? With Nathan's work?
I know Nathan is working on it, yes.
Yeah, so we,
Are you referring to the HVAC and the heating?
and the ADA compliant portion.
Right, that's out there, and it has not been addressed, but
But
that,
it's all ready to go. The board needs to just put it out to bid, choose some dates and advertise it and put it out.
oh, we can do that as well.
I think you should, yeah.
Okay, well, I mean, I don't know why it's been held up, but we could do that as well, and we could also work on Station 3.
Well, no, you can't, because you can't have two firehouses out of service.
But
and
no,
that's
I
what
know,
you're
but I want to
talking about.
start just the process of getting this looked at.
understand that.
Because it's going to take a while. So we're already now sitting in Chester Heights for over what, 8 months? 6 months, 8 months, whatever it is.
And it's going to take even longer because we already have a package that's ready to put out for bid, but we're not, no one's moving that forward.
Well, let's do both. Let's do both Station 3 and Station 4. Put the ADA and HVAC system out to bid for Station 4, and meanwhile authorize whoever to,
Go out to bid for Station
Well,
3.
not to go out to bid, just to develop a plan. Because once you, again, if you put it out to bid and Chester Heights Station 4 is not complete, you're going to put two firehouses out of service at the same time.
The men can function, I think Steve can confirm, they can function at Station 3 while half the floor is being worked on.
No, because it's the front threshold where they come in and out.
It's the front or back?
It's the very front where the rigs pull in and out, so you wouldn't be, but I would anticipate, like, you know, the engineering drawings and all that kind of stuff, plus going out for bid has to go in the newspaper for 40 or 45 days.
Right.
So we wouldn't be even looking to start this project for 6 months to a year. So I would say get all the preliminary work
I don't want to start it
done.
in November like we did Chester Heights, I want to try and, I would do it in the spring.
Whatever, yeah, I mean, you know, let's see what they say. Maybe they say we only have to patch the first 4 feet.
Okay, if
Because that's all, the only place where we have the shoring. It may not be a full floor replacement.
Right.
That's why we have to bring in an engineer to tell us what needs to be
Right, so
done.
let's see
So
what,
you're looking for a consultant, not someone to make plans?
No, this is an engineer that would come in and do an evaluation and then give us a plan to go forward.
But not drawings, just to come in and look at what he did and give us a suggestion of how we could fix it economically, long-term. I know that the last time they did Station 3, they only did the first half of the floor. And then.
Yeah, they
and
did the
then there was
front
issues.
half that, what's happening is where the threshold is, where the asphalt meets the terrazzo floor, moisture got in between there and it rotted the rebar and the concrete started spalling. And it's been getting worse, and that's why when they did the latest inspection, they're like, you really need to do something before this floor has more problems. So I'm trying to see if I can find the quote to see if the board wants to, just got it today, forward it to the board.
Well, but we could table this till next month, right? And
That's- yeah,
give the board
that's
more
fine.
time to look at it and get the quote and email. Good. All right, next.
all right, next is Station 4, just an update, we had our geotechnical engineer come out on March 2nd, I believe, and got a report back late this afternoon from UES, and the findings that the geotechnical engineer had were very similar to what the findings UES had in the very beginning, as to the waterproofing and the abatement of water coming into the bottom of the firehouse and so forth. So at this point, I'd like to make a motion to authorize the chief to execute an agreement with Universal Engineering Services for professional services related to a water/drainage system at the Chester Heights Station in an amount not to exceed $9,500. That's strictly UES's fee. But such agreement shall be reviewed by legal counsel. Cheryl's going to find out also, Vinco is on the job, of course, right now. Vinco could do this job, whether or not they can, whether or not we can just have the change order. We're going to find out from Cheryl later on. I mean, I'd prefer not to go out to bid on this thing and drag it out another 6 months. But if Vinco's there and she says we can have Vinco do the job,
Well, Nathan would probably be best to on that. But there was one point that the geotechnical engineer made that was definitely not in UES's first proposal.
which was what?
And he noted that there was a clay drainage pipe underneath, sub-foundation, that shattered, and that was directing the water into the sump pump. But yeah, you could actually see the water streaming through it. When we went to do the inside inspection, you could, it was actually Vinco's, Amos was the one that pointed it out to us. And there's no doubt, the problem is we don't know where the water's coming from. And so I would like for, I think the geotechnical engineer's report was very thorough and good, but he wants that pipe to be set into a particular gravel and wrapped so that it doesn't get clogged. But it has to be repaired. It's great that they can do it. There's a lot of holes on the floor that they probably could do it piece by piece. But I think that we need to find out where the source of the water is coming from. And I think it's going to be found that it's the northwest corner. And I wouldn't be surprised that a dry well in that area from the outside of the building might be very beneficial. In other words, if we could stop the water and then get it somehow not to go underneath the foundation of the firehouse, but redirect it into the storm drains. I mean, that's going to be very difficult. There is a storm drain out there in the ball field. If we could work in agreement with the town of Eastchester where we could run water into that storm drain, it's basically on the border of our property and the ball field, the town's property, or somehow get a pipe going, through the dugout area or that, parallel to the firehouse out to the storm drain. But to allow the water to continue to come through the firehouse and then sump it out, there has to be a better solution. I mean, I like the idea that we're gonna take the foundation water and try to put it into the sump pump, make the sump pump deeper. I understand that there is water coming up out of the ground underneath the firehouse. The only way to get that is to do that. But if there's other water, and it appeared to me that the water was coming from the northwest corner, running diagonally to the southeast corner. And if, we have to discover where that source of water is. If it's just purely groundwater, that's fine. But if it's actually coming from the outside area, and then we're directing it by pipe underneath the firehouse, I don't think that's a
I believe he mentioned that it was just really, water was rising after it rained. He didn't say anything about a source when it's not raining. He sounded as if there was not an issue.
Well, we went there on a dry day. Now, of course, the source of that water may very well been Vinco trying to pump out the holes. And they were pumping it out the window. Like Tim, I said, there's water in that well, and that's where the water streaming down. And he was like, water in that well? That shouldn't be. I sealed that. But it was unsealed to pump it out.
So now, if that's the case, are you saying that you don't want UES to now draft up plans until you challenge the geotechnical engineer?
I'm not challenging the geotechnical.
okay.
I just said it was very thoroughly done.
Right,
All
but-
I'm saying is that we can't go with Joe's old plans, that he has to, he was kind enough to give us the old bid, which is great, but he's gonna have to invest a little more time in understanding it to
Well,
where.
I believe he's going to draft. I can find out from Joe.
Thank you. That's all I'm saying.
That's fine.
I'm not arguing, I'm just saying that.
And if you like, I
that's-
could also
it's-
ask him to address your concern as far as, do we know where the water is coming from for sure, to be certain, and if there's another alternative.
Well, that's how you solve it, right?
Yeah,
If you
well-
don't know the source, it's very difficult.
Well, I would think
to
that,
solve.
he went out there, I'm hoping that he would be
So I was there the day the hydraulic engineer showed up, and Commissioner Ranalone came, and at the end, after we had already done the inspection. My understanding from the hydraulic engineer was that's the water table. So he said it's fine that it's 4 inches below the concrete slab, and then the sump pump would only pump out like at times of it rising above that, 6 inches or 4 inches below the slab, because it's not going to hurt it as long as it's below the slab. So he doesn't have any problem maintaining that water level. That's like the natural water level, the way he explained it to me. And so it's always been there for 80 years, and it's going to be there regardless. If we put in super pumps, we can lower it, but those pumps are going to run 7 days a week, 24 hours a day, he said, because he said it's just going to be more groundwater coming in because that's the level in that area. His suggestion was that you accept that as the acceptable level. It's below everything. The footings will not be undermined or minimize their strength. But you develop a sump pump system that only kicks in. So he said you make like a bathtub with sump pumps. So once the water reaches over the level that you determine you want to maintain it at, then the pumps will kick on because they'll spill over into the cavity where the pumps are. So he says that level of water is fine. If you try to like eliminate all
It never
that.
enters the building.
What's that?
You're pumping it out from underneath the building. You're not allowing water to enter into the building.
Well, the goal would be to just maintain that water level at its natural level. If we had heavy rain, the water level would rise, all the sump pumps would then kick in. So that's what he said.
Did you notice
from my
that there was
understanding.
water, the clay pipe?
We
it's
saw the
all
clay
busted
pipe.
up. Did you notice there was there is water running through that, as beat up as that pipe
Right,
is?
right,
You could
right.
see water running through it, right?
So I did not
That's not
notice that.
groundwater.
Yeah, so I did not notice that.
Okay.
I didn't, nobody pointed out that, that was water coming there. I was there with Joe Paterno and the hydraulic engineer.
He wasn't there that day.
He was not there
Do you
that day.
recall what I'm talking about,
Yes,
Paul?
yes. Yeah.
So they, that was what I thought he was going to suggest, and, that's also included the French drain around the perimeter, or, whatever is the technical
In the
term.
perimeter of the
The whole
floor.
basement, all the way around the
See,
basement.
I don't,
But it's only
an
the-
outside issue, or under issue. you know.
Under, right.
Basically, what you're saying when you put a French drain inside a building is, I surrendered, let the water come in. I think there has to be a way where we can keep the water from coming in and pushing it away from the building. And I agree that the groundwater is going to come up, so I love that idea of reestablishing that French drain under the foundation to run the water, but at least it's not on the floor. I don't think that's the issue. Once Tim solved that leak from the back of the house with the generators that were poorly installed,
Right.
I think that there's not as, and Steve, correct me if I'm wrong, you work there, right? Is there water on the floor still, since that leak in into the automatic transfer switch has been stopped?
Wait, it's the old station 4?
Yeah.
The last time I was there, no, it was still below the,
I was there that day. There was 3 inches of water in the boiler room.
There was.
Yes, coming up through that floor drain.
Yeah.
So that's, and then in the back far left corner, as you go from the front to the back of the basement, that back left corner was very wet. So,
Well, yeah, that's the area I'm talking about. Now, I don't know if that was because the hoses were pumping out into that dry well. I mean, not the dry well, into the window well.
Right.
But I think a dry well in that area would solve a lot of our problems. And that's all I'm saying when you talk to Joe, to see what he thinks of that.
Okay, it's fine.
And to keep it away from the firehouse, and if there's some way to either hook up into the drain that's already existing there that must go into a storm drain somewhere, and that we would share that and move the water that way, or if unfortunately we have to tear up that little concrete piece, or even somehow the stairwell that we have that's not being used there.
so the engineer's concern was that your dry well is going to be above the level of the water that you're trying to get rid of, right? Because the basement goes down 12 feet. So now your dry well has to be down at least 15 or 20 feet. And he was saying you might hit rock, just like you hit rock over by the electric meters, and you might not be able to get a dry well that deep. So he had mentioned to Commissioner Ranalone and I that if you wanted to put he said, let's try the inside solution that he recommended. If it needs to be supplemented, we could put a pump on that, out in that area that you're talking about that can possibly tie into dry wells, but he was saying like that pump would have to go down like below the foundation to collect that water that you're talking about that's underneath the slab. So he said you should try this first, and then if you still see an issue, then this is Plan B. You added exterior pumps that would try to supplement the Plan A.
Okay.
Right? Isn't that what you understood?
Yes.
So they did, because specifically in that area that's already excavated on the left side of the firehouse where the garbage shed used to be going towards the back, he could see that that's where the water is.
They want that to be an add-on. Maybe we should consider that. I mean, the geotechnical engineer didn't think that was the source of water. And obviously it's not. That was dry. I mean, was there water in that hole?
Sure, yeah.
Was there water in that hole when you?
Yes, yeah.
How deep was it?
I mean, we didn't go down there. There was a ladder there, I would guess maybe a rung or
Are we
two.
talking the basement or on the outside?
No, on the outside against the foundation
So
wall.
they made that pretty deep. What, did they dig underneath the bedrock? That piece of rock that's sticking
No, I'm
out
talking
before-
further out. The bedrock was where they stopped digging,
But-
like
but
coming
yeah,
towards
but
the front.
They have to run the pipe into the dry wells that we're gonna place in the front corner.
But that's why he's saying put a pump there, and that pump can pump it wherever you want.
okay,
It could
very
go
good. I
above the
misunderstood
rock.
that. Very
So
good.
it's
I
not
thought
a.
we were talking about the back
It's
of
not
the
a.
house.
It is the back, but it's not a gravity pipe that goes to a dry well. You'll be putting a pump down there, and then the hose can go up and over that rock
And into the pipe.
and into a dry well in the
Up in
front or
front.
under the ramp. That's where they were saying they may be
But
putting the dry
again,
wells.
the water that is visibly running isn't coming from that area. The
Mm-hmm.
water that's visibly running is coming from the firefighter's dorm.
Right.
Where the door is to
Mm-hmm.
the firefighter's dorm, behind there.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, no one can tell, you can't see the terminus of that clay pipe, but that's the direction it's running from.
Do you want me to get in touch with our sewer camera guy? I mean, they snake pipes all the time. We can use the guy we use in the north end for the quarterly sewer line.
It wouldn't surprise me at all if that storm drain that's in the field is actually the source of that pipe.
I don't know.
Yeah, so, I mean, well, that's another issue. Is that something that needs to be voted on, or is that the procurement, you have the procurement? Isn't that like a $600
But, yeah,
fee?
to hire our guy to look at it. I mean, I would want to coordinate with this engineer to see if that would be something that would make a difference, Because, just to see how far it goes, like, when they put that in, it usually gives them all the footage and how far it's going. So, I could see if it's something that the engineer would think would make a difference.
Actually, now that I think about it, that drain is so much newer than that clay pipe, it would be impossible. Well, who knows, I don't know. But certainly some solution has to happen. Please, I'm sorry to interrupt.
No, that's all
Paul.
right. So, I
Please
mean,
go.
do you want to, would you prefer to respond to Joe with your questions? I don't misquote you?
Certainly, I think that we would do it in an email.
I'm saying, do you want, I mean,
If
you have.
you write an email, I'll certainly add to it, send to Joe an email, and I will do it all through the commissioners, and I'll just note what I saw and see what Joe thinks.
All right, but in the meantime, we're okay with the motion to allow, when we're ready to, allow Joe to start the,
The drawings, when he
Yes.
knows exactly what has to be done, he'll draw up his plans. I think it's a very good idea.
all right, so again, a motion to authorize chief to execute an agreement with Universal Engineering Services for professional services related to a water drainage system at Chestnut Station in an amount not to exceed $9,500. Such agreement shall be reviewed by legal counsel. I make the motion.
I'll second that.
Tom seconds it.
I'll
You
call the
sign?
roll. Commissioner Lori?
Aye.
Commissioner Manalone?
Aye.
Commissioner Roach?
Aye.
Commissioner Carlo?
Aye.
Motion carried.
Okay. Local 916.
Just quick, I know I've thanked you before, but I'd like to do it in a more formal setting. I'd like to thank the commissioners for filling all the vacant firefighter spots this year, and also the transfer from Mount Vernon's a good fit for the department. He's doing very well. Thank you for that, and hopefully when all the firefighters come back in July or August, it affects the overtime budget.
Well, you're welcome, Steve. Okay, public comments, sir.
How's everybody, okay?
How are you?
Yeah, we're tired now, it's 2 hours.
Let me ask you, before you did this work at the Chester Heights Firehouse, Did you get an engineer's report, a bore service to come in and service the earth to see where this water is? Did we do that? Did we have a? do we have
You're
that
talking
done?
about below the basement floor?
Did we have a?
I
truck
don't
come
believe
in?
we did.
Well, we just did with a
Did-
geotechnical engineer.
No, did you do it before you did it?
None of us were on the board at the time.
You were on the board when they did it.
No, this work was already
Why
being,
didn't you do it then if nobody was on the board? I mean, this is just constructive criticism. None of you people are engineers, correct? Why don't you hire an engineer that represents the Eastchester Fire District? You're hiring a consulting firm. I could come in and tell you, I'm gonna put nails in this wall, I'm gonna put the thermostat in that wall. You're paying me. Hire somebody that represents the district.
It's
Okay.
Universal
employee.
Engineering
An engineer,
Services.
An
It-
engineer, a
it is an
certified engineer, and a clerk of the works. So this person comes back to the board, at a board meeting like this, and says, Chief, this is what we found, commissioners, this is what we found, this is what's going on. We don't hear that. Number two, did you ever think of looking in that earth there? Because I bet you 2-to-1, that's coming from the reservoir that's up on the highway. That was all farmland and marshland before the firehouse was built. The Boston to Westchester used to run through there. And for you people who don't know what that was the old train that ran out of New York City and it was going up to Boston. And during the Second World War, the tracks, the company went bankrupt and that stopped. But if you had put some dye in the water and see where that's coming from, you would find out. But what you're doing here, you're wasting a lot of time and assets. You know, you have somebody coming in, Brian, you said somebody will snake the pipe. That should have been done months ago, before this was even done. And it wasn't done. It's horrible. I mean, we like our fire district. Our firefighters do a great job in this community. But what's going on now? It's piecemeal here. It's horrible. You have a piece of contracting equipment sitting out in front of that house. You don't have proper signs up. You have signs on the door that are photostat that said, firehouse under construction. You should have a sign in the middle of that driveway. In the event of a fire, call 911. There's no sign up. You have no lights around the perimeter. Vandalism could happen. The outside lights are turned off. It doesn't look right. That firehouse went back for years. When my children were growing up, that was one of the safe places in Eastchester to go. Firefighter Santucci was there. We had a cop that walked the beat, Patrolman Graff. They knew what was going on. Not anymore. And the ADA compliance. People come to the firehouse, and if there's something going on upstairs, is that a public access, Brian, for the people to go up on the second floor?
No, it won't be. We're not going to be allowed to use that until we do make it ADA accessible.
But you're going to, but see, that's the whole key. You're not really putting enough meat about talking about the ADA compliance. That should have been done before the floor was even done. And it wasn't. You're going about it the wrong, in my opinion, you're going about it the wrong way. I'm not an engineer, but I know enough. If you do work, you get people in there that know what is going on and represent me or represent you and say, listen, this is what the problem is. It's not a sun pump problem. It's not a concrete problem. That water table is rising no matter what. And the only way to correct that table is have somebody come in there and tell you where it's coming from. And putting the water into a storm drain is not ADA, it's not compliable by the Environmental Protection Agency. That's a fine. You can't take storm water and put it in.
but you have to get permits. Mike, right?
Yeah.
Okay. To be honest with you, that firehouse is in the worst possible location. It does not serve Eastchester at all. It serves you people in Chester Heights, and you like it because you think it's a community center, but firehouses aren't community centers. They're emergency action centers. And this is a rudimentary drawing, but this is the town of Eastchester, okay? The chief likes to go by, is it NFPA standards of 1.5 mile radius for every engine company?
No, NFPA is a time, so that you should have the first due company there within 4 minutes and the full first alarm assignment within 9 minutes. The ISO standard is a distance, 1.5 miles for an engine and 2.5 miles for a ladder truck. And so that affects your fire insurance rates for your homeowner's
Okay,
insurance.
so here's Chester Heights, right? You agree with that rudimentary picture of Eastchester? We have a Chester Heights firehouse right here. It serves such a small percentage of Eastchester. Look at how, look, please, I listen to you.
Okay.
It serves such a small percentage of Eastchester. It is the worst possible place to have a firehouse. Look at all this area, the 1.5 mile radius. 75 to 80% of it, they don't even respond to that area. It's New Rochelle, it's Pelham, it's Mount Vernon. We have this small little section of Eastchester that firehouse serves. We have another firehouse in Bronxville on the Mount Vernon border. 1 block from the firehouse is the Mount Vernon border. That firehouse serves such a small section of Eastchester. 75 to 80% of its 1.5 mile response district is in Yonkers and Mount Vernon. We need a firehouse a mile and a quarter from the Mount Vernon border north on Rose Avenue or on Winter Hill. And then, instead of serving this small little section of town, it actually serves the whole southern portion of town. You see? Now we're actually serving the town of Eastchester with our firehouses, instead of serving these little tiny communities that hold on to their firehouses like they're dear. And that's fine. I'm glad that you love your firehouse. I'm glad you remember firefighter Santangelo from 50 years ago. Okay, fine. But you understand what I'm saying.
That's your opinion.
But that's a fact. That's not an opinion. That's a fact.
Tell it to the children that go to Tuckahoe High School, Cottle School, tell it to them. Tell it
Well,
to
the firehouse would be closer if it was up on 22.
If they're in an affair and there's a fire breaks out there.
The firehouse would be closer to them if it was up on 22.
High school students and the teachers. That firehouse.
I'm telling you, the firehouse would be closer where I'm proposing it.
That's your opinion. But this is important.
Geometry doesn't lie. Geometry's not an opinion. It's a fact.
All of a sudden, well, then if you knew that before, why didn't you just say before we did all this work, we should have tore the firehouse down and closed it? But you're on the board and you decided to have this work done.
I had asked to close it.
Well, why didn't you say
Paul,
so?
did we have this conversation
Why
when
didn't you say so?
Winter was on the board your first month? And
I know if I was on the board years ago, when all this work was proposed on that firehouse, I would have said to knock the firehouse down, build a 1-story on-grade firehouse in that location, if you wanted to have a firehouse there.
That's right.
For two firefighters, you don't need that huge building.
Well, Paul, I'm gonna have to tell you, you live in that area as well as I do. You don't live there, Tom, okay? We need that firehouse.
well, you want that firehouse, but it does not it doesn't serve the entire town of Eastchester the best.
I don't think you would want the next fire board meeting part of Chester Heights coming here.
Please, let them all come. I would love to see this filled up. This is embarrassing that 3 people come to a fire board meeting.
That was your opinion. But what I'm saying is, look and see what's being done there. You're not doing the right thing for the people of the community with that firehouse being vacant. You're not doing the right thing for the firefighters, putting them in an old schoolhouse that's decrepit.
That was for your benefit, to keep them there. I suggested that we close that firehouse and we put that manpower in 27 engine. I'm not changing my story. I'm telling you what I'm saying.
Think about your firefighters. Think about them being relocated into a schoolhouse, and only the engine is there. If it goes below 32 degrees, the engine is brought up to headquarters.
Michael, the first week they were there, I visited them. I drove my car there, and I parked there, and I went into the firehouse, or the schoolhouse, like you said, and asked them, do you have everything you need? Can you cook here? Can you have adequate heat? Do you have adequate cooling? Do you have what you need? They said it was okay. Is it perfect? Is it ideal? No, absolutely not. Like I said, You mentioned a lot of occupancies. We have 2 firehouses on the border, the southern border of town. We have a time element. Do you know how long it takes 30 Engine to get out of Chester Heights to serve this small little piece of Eastchester? And if it's needed on the north end, if it was in the middle of town, it would be so much more valuable to the entire town. But you have to work with what you have.
I've never heard people complain about the fire department in Chester Heights. And if it wasn't sanctioned years ago, before you and I were here, when they had the horse and wagon, they would have never have built that firehouse.
Well, they built it where the population was at the time.
Because they saw the open door, that the community's going to expand. You have a closed mind on it, that's your opinion, I respect it.
Well, you don't. When you insult people, you're not saying you respect it.
Think about what's going on, the way that fire department, the way that firehouse looks. Clean up. If you're not going to do anything right now, get that piece of equipment off. Put the lights up outside. Put a sign up in the event of a fire. Dial 911. Okay, that's not out there. You say you're representing me. You're not representing me. I'm representing you as a taxpayer. Please do the right thing. Okay? And about looking, all of a sudden, you know...
Michael, you just made a great point.
What's that?
My term ends in December. I hope you run for fire commissioner, and then you can, well, you just said you want to represent me.
I said you represent me, and I represent you as a taxpayer, okay, of the Board of Fire Commissioners. You're not doing the right thing, and you're playing games with me. Don't play games.
I'm not playing games, please.
Okay? This is a game
I'm telling you the truth.
Because if somebody dies, God forbid, or somebody's house is burning and a child is caught upstairs, you're going to stand there and say the same thing? I don't think so, my friend. Okay? You've been a New York City fireman, and you know what the deal is.
Exactly, and I'm using that experience.
And you can't see 2 feet in front of you, but you got people behind you with a hose line. You got engines coming in to help you. But this is not New York City. This is a small private area of Westchester County, a part of Westchester and a part of New York State. Do the right thing for the people here. Get an engineer in here and see what's going on. And is there an attorney on the phone there, on the thing? I wish she would also get involved and get the elevator in there too for ADA compliance. This has been going on for over 10 years.
Michael,
It's been done.
Michael, you know, ADA compliant is a very interesting thing. What we're doing to this firehouse is renovating it. We're not building a brand new firehouse. If we were to build a brand new firehouse and it was 2 stories, it would be required to put an elevator in it. You're absolutely right. But when you're renovating something, you're not required to make it accessible to the second floor. Cheryl, a citizen is questioning what I just told him. Do you want to comment on it? And I will relay what she says.
I can hear her.
I do believe that an engineering firm did an ADA analysis, I believe, and I think what you're saying, Commissioner, is correct, as per the engineer. It's less of a legal question and more of an engineering code analysis.
Did you hear that?
I heard what she said.
Okay.
Okay? But I'm sure...
I'm dealing with facts here. I'm not trying to deceive anybody. I'm not dealing in fantasy world, and I'm trying to protect the entire town of Eastchester.
I bet you're in favor of closing that firehouse.
Well, I just told you it should be relocated.
You're in favor.
I'm not in favor of closing any firehouses. I'm in favor of relocating them so they're in better positions to serve the entire town.
Okay?
I am what? I want them to...
You're on the board, okay?
Mike, if you recall, when we were in the firehouse and headquarters, and the chief said by July, we should start that. Now, that was 2.5 years ago, okay? And I told you, and I told the residents that were in that meeting, Mike, as long as I'm on this board with the citizens there, you'll never see me vote yes to close any firehouse in this town. I've been a lifelong resident here, and that's not my cup of tea. I know this thing took a long time. I know there was people on this board that just like to Band-Aid everything, like Commissioner Roach had said. We could have done that firehouse long ago, and I agree with you 100% that firehouse should have been done, renovated long ago, but it's just that few commissioners who are not here no more just wanted to Band-Aid it, and then their thoughts would used to say, and I'll give you an impression that they did, I did that, and that's the answer. So I'm on your side, Mike, I'm not fighting with you.
The burden on Chief Tween has enough responsibility of taking care of the fire department.
Absolutely.
Hiring an engineer that represents the fire district and comes back to us and the community and to you and tells you this is what the problem is. Hiring a consultant firm that you're paying to tell you what it is, or it might be what it is, isn't working. Just like when you did the work down there, you started chopping up the floor, putting those concrete drains around the property. Nothing was done, and nothing was done to show where the problem is. It's still there. It's going to be another 6 months. We'll probably go through the winter again before it gets fixed. So, you know, you people are on the board. You people aren't construction people. You people, Brian's a firefighter. The rest of you are just people who take an active role in the community. But do the right thing, get the job done.
And willing to take an active role. I made you an offer and you denied it immediately.
Say again?
I said run for fire commissioner. You have great ideas.
And I was also a volunteer here.
That's awesome. So do it again and become a fire commissioner and do what you're talking about.
Run for fire commissioner again, but I'm not.
Well, you shouldn't be throwing stones at the people who are doing this. Uncompensated, we're devoting our time.
You're not compensated, I know that. You're doing it out of the goodness of your heart, if you want to do it out of the goodness of your heart.
Michael, we want to get this done as fast as possible. I mean, it's got to get fixed. It's got to get fixed right. And I want to get them out of the schoolhouse as well as anybody else does.
Right.
So, you know, all I can tell you is that we're going to do whatever we can to get the proper people in there, get it resolved, be done with it, and get back to normal. That's all.
And clarify your statement. You're saying that we should hire an engineer for a fire district. So you say we should hire an employee?
Not an employee, an engineer.
Well, that's what we have. That's what we're doing.
Hire an engineer.
You're not saying anything different than what's happening.
Fire district, okay?
What do you think these engineers that we're paying, they are?
Company to come in and do that work for you. Hire somebody who will come back, give the chief a report, give you a report. A consulting firm is a consulting firm. Hire an engineer.
I don't understand what you're talking about. Why are you saying a consulting firm?
Why a building contractor? Okay, you don't have a building contractor. You're hiring an engineer. You're hiring a firm to come in and give you a report.
You just said it right. We're hiring an engineer. You accidentally, you tried to stop it, but you actually said it the right way first.
The water's here, the water's out the back door, there's a concrete block, there's a clay pipe underneath. Let him come to the meeting and tell us what his finding is. Not you, because you're not an engineer. You're not a construction engineer. Have the construction person come.
I think you should foil all the paperwork, and this way you'll have access. Well, okay, you don't have to. I'm just making a suggestion if you want to know what the engineer says.
Stop double talking me and quit.
I'm not. Why are you saying this? I'm being as honest as I possibly can to you.
Put it on the chief, that the chief find out what's going on, or you go down to the site and they're going to tell you what's going on. Get a licensed engineer that will represent the district and bring it.
Thank you, Michael. Can I make a resolution that we ask Joe to come to the next meeting and give a report to the public?
Well, we can ask Joe to come with the resolution for it. We just have to come.
Yeah, he's come before.
Well, he should have been here. He should have been here, okay? He should have been here. So it hasn't been done.
Well, I just invited him. Hopefully he'll come. And you can come, and it'll be on the agenda.
I think the people who live in Chester Heights, because I know they're probably watching, come to the next meeting. The more come, the more express your problems, what you feel about that firehouse. And please do the right thing. Put a sign up that says, in the event of an emergency, call 911 and light the grounds on the firehouse up, because you have outside lighting for vandalism. Because we'll come back and we'll find out that somebody was spray painting or breaking into the piece of generator equipment and robbing the copper. Thank you again.
Chief, what do you think of our citizens' recommendations?
So the lighting has been disconnected because the wires went through the floor. So a lot of the lighting in the firehouse, a lot of the electrical in the firehouse is not operational right now. So if you want me to hire an electrician to install new exterior lighting, we could do that. But the existing lighting is not working due to wires being cut when the floor was removed.
And what does building department say about that? Did they say it's required?
I believe the safety fence around the firehouse is what covers construction projects, because basically the building is turned over to the contractor right now. They have a chain lock on there, for their access.
They have it on the front, Brian, I
So,
understand that,
right.
but, you fixed the facade of that building, you put new lights up, and now the wires are cut, so the lights are just lying dormant.
Well, they'll be reconnected once the floor is in.
Well, they should be reconnected now, Brian, I mean, that's my opinion. I can't tell you how to run your
Right.
business, okay? But for a safety reason, and for a reason to keep the community, keep that area safe, and not have any more vandalism, not anymore, but have any vandalism done to that building, light the property up. And the biggest thing is, put a sign in. Because somebody who's traveling through town may say, I don't feel well, but I know there's a firehouse there. Go up to the firehouse and see on the window that you can't even get behind the gate, a paper like this that may say, firehouse is closed. Call 911. That's the simplest thing to do.
I actually love that idea. Can we get a piece of plywood and
Not a
paint?
piece of plywood, come on now. This
Well,
is-
how long do you want this up for?
A sign and put up, like a traffic sign and put.
Fine, whatever you say, brother.
911, a piece of plywood, why don't you get a piece of cardboard? Come
Well,
on.
Michael,
Wow.
so you want a sign for the next 20 years?
Do I want a sign for the next 20 years? Is that what you're telling the public?
No, I'm not telling the public that. I'm trying to make you've made a suggestion. Instead of ignoring you, I'm trying to act on it immediately. I actually said, if you listen instead of talk, you would have heard me say, I like that idea.
You're trying to humiliate me. For the next 20 years?
I'm not.
Piece of cardboard? Come on.
But we should spend $1,000 for a metal sign to be professionally made when we could get a piece. You're saying cardboard. I said plywood. No, it's not. You get treated plywood, it would last for 10 years.
Probably ask the town or the police department if they have a sign where you could spray the sign and decal, and in the event of emergency, dial 911. Firehouse closed. Simple and easy.
Will you research that for us?
I'll look into getting a sign, maybe like one of those political type signs, I don't think they would be too expensive, something like
We can
that.
get a
Well,
sign, we can get a sign
he's
made.
talking about a very substantial sign that'll
I'm not
last
talking
20
about a
years.
substantial sign. I'm talking like a traffic sign, okay? A stop sign sign. Turn it back over. I'm not talking about it. And put down, firehouse is closed. In the event of emergency, call 911. Not to have this on a window and you look in between the gate. What does that say? That's all.
But I think the gate would let them know that the firehouse is closed. I mean, I don't think anybody would think that's an operating firehouse right now.
In the event if somebody pulls up there and they have somebody who's suffering with chest pains or something, and they're, wild,
Right.
you see 911. Everybody carries a cell phone today, 911.
Yeah, I mean, we could put a sign up, but I think most people know to dial 911 when they have an emergency. So, but we could put signs up. I'll look into it.
Okay, and maybe look into the lights and see if they can take that piece of equipment that's on the ramp there and put it to the side, because that looks really like hell, looking at that. It makes the community look like it's an abandoned building. Maybe that's what you want. Okay.
Please don't tell me what I want. I want to relocate that firehouse to a more optimal space so it serves the entire town instead of a Chester Heights clubhouse. That's what I want. But the board disagrees with me, so it's not going to happen because I'm one voice. Luckily, I'll be gone soon, so I won't have to hear.
When you come, speak to Commissioner Roach, because he wants the firehouse to be closed.
And I won't change my mind. You could bring 1,000 people here. What's right is right. What's wrong is wrong. I don't bend to people that just want to bully me. That means nothing to me.
Remember, this isn't New York City FDNY. Okay?
I'm very proud of that. I wish it was, but it's not. But it's okay.
I'm very proud of it, because you were the training officer there at one time.
Have a good day, brother.
You too, take care, thank you guys.
Good night.
Good night.
Okay. On that note, Cheryl, we're going to go to exec session for legal matters.
Wait a minute, I want to say something.
Sorry, Tony. Well, I apologize. Commissioner comments. Excuse
Okay.
me.
I don't know if everybody read the paper, but up in Carmel, there was a very bad fire. A man got killed. He was trying to save his grandchildren. The reason why I bring this up, you know, we all know our grandchildren are just as well as our children are lovable people. But up there, and it said it in the paper, I think it was like 5 fire departments, Mayapack Falls, all the fire departments up there, Walk Hill came and everything, and they had to truck the water in because there's no fire hydrants up around there. The point what I'm trying to bring out, yesterday was recyclable day. I drove around town. I counted 5 fire hydrants. People piled all their recyclables against the fire hydrant. God forbid if you have a fire in your community, in your neighborhood, or even in your house, the firemen have to kick that stuff out of the way to get the hoses connected into the engines, and you even do that when there are leaves. I know I'm being repetitious. The last time I was on the board, I said the same thing. But it's a dangerous thing. We have the hydrants here. People up that area don't have the hydrants. And as I said, water had to be trucked in by tankers. Please, don't put that stuff against the hydrant, because when it does fail, you'll find out the first person to get the blame is the fire department. Look how long it took them to hook up. Look how long it took them to move all the garbage in front of it. Leave bags, recyclables, people just throw things on it. That's not a stanchion thing with a torch on it. That's a hydrant to protect your neighborhood. Please use it that way. Thank you.
Thank you, Anthony. And in that regard, I want to thank Esong, because I remember in the snowstorm, she put on an infomercial about keeping the hydrants clear of snow and not piling snow about it. So that's why our new social media policy and trying to get information out to the people on a constant, there's no such thing as repetition when you're saying good things.
Okay, thank you.
The more you say it, the better off we are. So I thank everyone for their efforts in that regard.
Does Esong want to share our social media accounts? Right, Facebook, what is it, Eastchester Fire District, Twitter?
Sure. Oh, yes, of course. On Instagram, it's Eastchester Fire District. On Facebook, Eastchester Fire District.
Okay.
Twitter, Eastchester FD. So,
Okay.
Thank you, Sean.
no problem.
So sign up for them, right? Everyone can just sign up to get them?
Yeah, so one of the things that I could also propose is that we do send out right now notices to an EBOFC email account for notices of the meetings. Ideally, you know, down the road, we could collect whoever's interested in news announcements. They could subscribe to different things, of course, the frequency of what they would want from the fire district. That can be an option on the website. So, you know, what I can do is start putting a notice that should they have any interest, they can sign up on our accounts on the meeting notices at the bottom, and then when the website launches, there will be that automatic form for them to visit and fill out for what they prefer to have sent to their inboxes or by text or whatnot. So there is that option.
Okay. Thank you.
No problem.
And I would make a comment that obviously there's a lot of talk about a war. Wars going on. Unfortunately, there's always wars going on in the world. It's in one specific location. It's getting a lot of attention now. And certainly, a lot of people are being displaced. Children are being orphaned. But, you know, there's wars in Africa. There's wars in Asia. There's wars in Europe. God willing, there'll never be a war in North America. But maybe we can end the meeting with a moment of silence for all those, you know, people have died, lost their lives, widows and orphans left behind.
That's fine. And, well, lastly, Sunday is the St. Patrick's Day Parade in town here? So
Yeah, the Eastchester St. Patrick's Day Parade, I believe, is a Union March, and I know, yeah, we'll have an apparatus in the parade as well.
it's a great parade, probably the best
Any of the
parade.
commissioners want to march?
The Irish put
Driving
on,
the
the
trolley.
Irish put on a great parade
Driving the
every year,
trolley.
so,
Driving the trolley.
okay. Well, like I said, they put on a great parade every year, so, you know, if you're around, come on out. It's always got great participation from the stands and so forth, so it's a pretty cool parade. All right, on that note, so we're going to go to after a moment of silence, we're going to go to exec session for legal matters, and then we're going to adjourn the meeting, so, moment of silence. All right,
Okay.
motion to adjourn?
I'll make the motion.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Good night, guys.
Oh, boy.